you here from Fenway Park, and a beautiful day has turned into a glorious night. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Aaron Judge in the lineup again. He may be a little tired, but he has been the face of baseball. The most important pitcher on the Yankee staff's on the mound tonight, Masahiro Tanaka. You could say the same about David Price if you consider Chris Sale a given. Dustin Pedroia, the former MVP and Rookie of the Year, now the veteran, finds himself in the middle of the Red Sox lineup. A lineup that's been struggling and lost again today. Rick Porcello got a couple of pitches up in the zone, and that cost him. Ronald Torreyes delivers there. Didi Gregorius goes deep here, and it's 2-0. And against the Red Sox, any number has been a lot. Benintendi and Bradley both go down. The Red Sox fail to score a run. Aroldis Chapman gets Mookie Betts with a man on to ground out. And the Red Sox anemic offense of late puts up another goose egg. The Yankees win it by a score of 3-0 because of their offensive problems. They've seen both the Rays and Yankees sneak up on them. The American League East, only a one-game difference in the loss column between the Yankees, 3 with the Rays, and the wild card has the Yankees on top and the Rays in second place. Welcome everyone inside the booth tonight. Aaron Boone, Jess Mendoza, and I'm Carl Ravitch. Welcome to Fenway Park. Yankees, Red Sox first place, second place. And the biggest story we just saw at the Home Run Derby, of course, was Aaron Judge. I think we would admit we were worried. Might not play tonight. He's in the lineup.
Thank goodness, because he is someone that you absolutely want to watch play. And he stands out. I mean, he literally is better than everyone in almost every single category because of the way that he plays the game, but also the way he hits the ball. No one in baseball hits the ball harder. 121 miles per hour is his highest exit velocity. He also goes for opposite field. No one has hit more opposite field home runs. He's at 9. Then his arm. Almost 100 miles an hour. He's an athlete. He brings a presence from right field. I don't care if you're a Yankee fan, a Red Sox fan. If you are a fan of baseball, you watch Aaron Judge.
Popo from Aaron Judge. He's in the lineup because there's a lefty on the mound. That's David Price. Now, Chris Sale was great yesterday. They lost in 16 innings, did the Red Sox. Sale did his job. What does Price have to do to sort of take the ball from Sale?
Dominate with his fastball. It's something he's done really his entire career, and one of the reasons he was brought to Boston. After 2 difficult losses, you hand the ball to David Price with the hopes that he can stop the bleeding in a sense. And after starting the year on the disabled list and really struggling at the start of the season with that command, the last 4 or 5 starts or so, he's really started to command the ball on both sides of the plate, something that's critical if they're going to kind of neutralize this Yankee power that we know can hit the ball out of the ballpark.
And endear himself to this
Absolutely.
crowd, right? That's something Price would like to do tonight. And you think about the Yankees, so they win in 16. They've taken 2 of 3, Buster only. They have lost their last 7 series and split only 1. They'd love to get a win and really change the narrative for them the second half.
That's exactly right, Carl. Because of what they did in Saturday in that crazy game and what they did earlier today, the Yankees now have a chance to jumpstart what will be a very challenging second half schedule. This is a start of a 3-time zone road trip. They go from here to Minnesota, Seattle. They play 66 games in the first 69 days after the All-Star break, but tonight they have a chance to win a series against their arch rival Red Sox and draw a line in the sand. Carl?
All right, Buster, there's Aaron Judge behind him. We'll look forward to seeing him take his rips in the first inning. And it's a foot race. And right now the Red Sox and look at those legs of John Farrell out in front of Girardi. And Kevin Cash on the Rays coming up quickly. The American League East race on display here. Sunday Night Baseball from Fenway Park when we come back. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN is presented by Taco Bell's limited edition double chalupa. You got a double from Aaron Judge, a double dose with a couple of bombs here at Fenway Park earlier this season. So Red Sox fans know all too well, like the rest of baseball now, following that home run derby, what he's capable of. And we got our own little version of Game of Thrones here tonight for the American League East, with the Yankees within one in the loss column of the Red Sox, and the Rays sneaking up behind. Tampa Bay a loser today to the Angels by a score of 4-3. We had a righty on the lineup tonight instead of David Price. Number 99 would have sat down, but instead it's the lefty Price out of Vanderbilt. He's on the mound for Boston, has pitched really well his last 4 starts, and he's got to deal with what looks like on paper a real good lineup as we take a look at the starting lineup presented by Taco Bell. Joe Girardi, you just look Aaron Boone at the top 5 in this one. Ellsbury, Sanchez, Judge, Holiday, Castro, and even Gregorius, who homered today.
Absolutely, they can thump you from a lot of different places, and tonight we're highlighting Gary Sanchez because of not only the success he's had in his career, but the early success he's had against David Price specifically. 4 for 7, all 4 home runs in his career, including 2 back on June 8th. He took a cut fastball and hit it way over the bullpen out there in left center, and then later in that ball game, a fastball up and out over the plate that he drives way out of that short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium. So a guy that sees the ball very well off the talented lefty for the Red Sox.
Talented and a former #1 overall pick of the Rays back in 2007. That's David Price, the lefty, and he has thrown a 4-seam fastball, a sinker. He now has used both the upper and lower quadrants. His first 5 starts were not good at all, and boy, his last 4, things have changed. One thing that has changed is his ability to throw a change up, which is something I think the Yankees have got to look for a little bit tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and the one thing he's done is he's incorporated in some of his starts, and it's a pitch that just keeps guys off balance enough to set up what is his bread and butter, and that is sticking the fastball, the cut fastball, the 4-seamer, and the sinker to both sides of the plate, critical for his success.
Buster on Baseball Tonight told us what John Farrell, he repeated what John Farrell had told us, the Red Sox manager, that one of the things they've noticed about Price, when he happens to start in a series in game 3 or 4 of that series, he will take what he has observed in games 1 and 2 and then utilize that to hopefully come up with a game plan in his mind that will assist him in getting guys out and bringing more success, as opposed to starting game 1 of the series or even game 2. This should be fun. Sunday night, Fenway Park, Red Sox, Yankees. The 4th game of what turned into, because of an earlier rainout, a 4-game set. And it's been bizarre. You saw Craig Kimbrell give up his first ever lead here at Fenway Park. We've seen Chapman struggle a little bit, a 16-inning game. And earlier today, as part of the split doubleheader, the Yankees behind CC Sabathia, who found out yesterday he might start. Well, he got the ball and the veteran delivered, and they won 3-0. A lot of people think that the greatest rivalry, Boston B and the NY, and the former Red Sox Jacoby Ellsbury leads things off. I mentioned Sanchez, really good numbers against Price as well. 27 of 77, that's a .351 average. And Ellsbury first pitch swing, a little blooper to center field, and he's now 28 for 78 against David Price. Ellsbury, one of the guys who took the first game off. And now Gary Sanchez. What a show he put on. This is one of those home run derbies like we had here at Fenway back in '99 when McGuire stole the show, but Griffey won it. Judge won it and overshadowed everybody, but Sanchez put on a show in Miami.
Well, especially because he was one of the first guys to hit, and it was fun to watch him. Just 17, 18 home runs in that first round. I think he gets overshadowed a lot in this lineup.
Judge overshadows the sun. He stands in the way. It's like a walking eclipse. Sanchez steps in, the catcher. Already told you the big numbers, 4 for 7, the 4 homers, a .571 average against Price. And he pops that out of play. The Red Sox defense, Sue Lynn is playing at shortstop tonight. There is no Xander Bogaerts. He gets the night off. And Brock Holt's a big story for Boston. He played in the first game, and now he is back full time after dealing with some concussion issues. He went on the DL back in early April, and it took him 3 months to come back. A huge piece to the Red Sox puzzle. Fastball at 94 misses up.
Ellsbury over there still runs well. 11 stolen bases on the year. Price does an excellent job usually of controlling the running game, and Vasquez behind the plate throws incredibly well. So they got to feel like there's an outstanding jump if Ellsbury's going to attempt to run at any point. But with those numbers that Sanchez has had in short time against Price, don't expect to see him running anytime soon.
Vasquez kind of fun guy to watch behind the plate, especially when he throws somebody out. He's got to get that flair, that personality like Javier Baez does. When he makes a good play, he'll let you know he made a good play, a good throw. We've seen that in this series already. Sanchez back up here, and he fouls a couple off.
And that's something that Price has done so much better, guys, the last 4 starts. That pitch 96 miles an hour and perfectly located up in the strike zone and in on the hands. That'll be a critical pitch tonight for him against the right-handed power of the New York Yankees. Opens up the outside part of the plate, but when he's dotting that ball in and up, he's usually on top of things.
A couple of fastballs. Will he change speeds here? Nope, he blew it by him at 95 miles an hour. And the first strikeout for Price. Now the biggest challenge in baseball for an opposing pitcher is Aaron Judge.
I think expect to see more up in the zone. That's how the Red Sox have pitched him this series to much success. As you saw with David Price against Sanchez is having that fastball 96 at the top.
On the corner for a called strike. So you saw the numbers on Judge, and obviously had an MVP first half to the season. 1 for his last 14. His hit today was just a squibber down the third baseline. Swings at a nasty 89-mile-an-hour slider, and he's behind 0-2.
Well, when you've established the inside part of the plate and then all of a sudden you go to that cutter, that looks like a strike out of the hand, especially because he's established it. And look at that ball just disappear down and in, ends up nowhere close to the zone, and Judge misses by a lot in the hole now again.
And he'll manipulate that cutter too.
Yep.
I mean, that you even called it. It looks like a slider out of the hand.
That was big. That was a big one.
They'll change the depth and the velocity.
1-2, pulled foul and hit hard. Learned a lot about Aaron Judge since he became a regular, but one of the things that struck me was the idea that he has that number 179 on his cell phone to remind him how hard this game is. And for a long time this season, stayed in a hotel, and he really was concerned that at some point, if he struggled, he'd be sent back down. Seems a little odd for a guy who's putting up the numbers he's putting up, but part of what makes him so solid. That one sails high at 95.
I think he's moved into a suite at that hotel now, safe to say. He's been upgraded.
Concierge floor now?
Yeah.
Big bed. Not necessary. He sleeps in a regular sized bed. I mean, these are important things that people at home need to know.
Doesn't he sleep diagonal at his bed back there?
Late on that one, 96 miles an hour, and Sanchez and Judge, the two Derby studs for the Yankees, both retired on strikeouts.
Well, early on, David Price really dialing up that velocity. You can sense that he's a little jazzed for this, but the good thing is when a guy's a little fired up early on, you worry sometimes when he's throwing a little harder than we're normally used to seeing him consistently. Sometimes the command doesn't follow. So far in this first inning, the command has been excellent to go along with that high velocity.
So Judge won for his last 15. First pitch to Matt Holliday, who was the hero yesterday. 9th inning, game-tying home run off Craig Kimbrell. Forced it into extra innings, and then they went to the 16th before they scored another run and won it. Ellsbury still stuck at first after that leadoff single.
Nasty.
Locates another one, huh?
Nasty cutter there. And again, it all starts with that fastball command in. Now all of a sudden, the Yankee hitters respect it. He starts it on that same plane. Looks like it's going to be a fastball in. Little cut action. Disappears down and in. Another favorable count for Price. And now you can start climbing the ladder with Holiday a little bit with that high fastball. That's a pitch that probably at best he's going to foul back. A lot of things he can do right here in an 0-2 count.
Adrian Johnson is calling balls and strikes tonight. Eric Cooper's down at first. Gary Cederstrom is at second. And Ramon DeJesus at third. This is another one out of play.
And that's where Price has got to be careful. And Matt Holliday showed in the home run that he hit last night. He can cover very well velocity down in the zone. But if you continue to climb that ladder, as you mentioned, Booney, that's where the holes of Matt Holliday start to show up. But you see where this pitch is located, very middle. He got lucky with this pitch. Yeah. He knows it.
I think he's surprising these Yankee hitters a little with how much velocity he's got. This may be the best fastball he's come out with in any game so far.
They set up in. That's where the ball went, but it misses. Remember Price too, spring training had a elbow issue, which I think probably, in talking to people who know him, concerned him a little more than perhaps they gave off and he gave off. He had attributed it to usual tenderness, but I think it was a little more than that. Holiday, that one into right field. That's good for a hit. Ellsbury puts the brakes on at second. And the Yankees get 2 on with their second hit of the inning from Holiday.
And Holiday does a nice job of shortening up.
Yeah, he does.
Because David Price did come more up in the zone with this pitch after coming up and in. And you see Holiday here, 2 strikes, very aware of the velocity that he's facing and just does a nice job of meeting this pitch, not trying to do a lot with it. And because of the velocity, he's able to find the hole, get it through for a base hit.
And you talk about a guy that may get a little overshadowed in this offense is Starlin Castro, an over 300 batting average.
An all-star.
Double digits in home runs, 45 RBIs, double digits in doubles. Call strike 1.
Another guy that likes it low in the zone, and he can cover too. And I think, you know, anytime you get a guy with 2 strikes that knows how to reach and get pitches off the plate, be able to put things in play, battle, lengthen at bats, that's what Starlin Castro does.
Once again, Price ahead 0-2. Good arms in the outfield as Vasquez runs out for a quick conversation with Price. Benintendi in left. Bradley, of course, in center. Mookie Betts in right field and playing fairly shallow against Castro.
We've seen all hard so far with David Price. A couple of cut fastballs, but for the most part, he's been letting that fastball rip. We haven't seen the breaking ball yet or the changeup. The changeup, which we think could play a role against these right-handed hitters.
0-2, broken bat. They get the force out as Lynn throws to Pedroia. 22 pitches, a couple of strikeouts, and 2 men left on. Red Sox coming to bat. David Price looking for some support. 32 home runs here at home this season. And of course, there's no David Ortiz for them as they get set to bat in the bottom of the first. And we take a look at our starting lineup, which is presented by Taco Bell.
At the very top, Mookie Betts, a guy that'll hit for average, have a lot of speed, but it's also the power that he brings from that leadoff spot. And we're seeing it more and more with leadoff batters, but he's got 11 career home runs as a leadoff hitter. That is a franchise record. He's a guy that will bring the power to all fields along with that average and speed.
CC Sabathia started the first game, pitched really well, and now it's Masahiro Tanaka on the mound. He's been a bit of an enigma for the Yankees this season. There have been some really good and some really bad. 18 starts. The first inning has not been kind to him. He has allowed 10 home runs. So take what Jess just said with Mookie Betts and that number.
It's a good little matchup.
You could have fireworks here.
And guys, Tanaka, I believe, is critical to the Yankees' success and their chances at winning an Eastern Division title and perhaps even getting into the postseason. Tanaka has to be much better than he was in the first half of the season. The long ball has been a real problem for him this year, giving up 23 in 102 innings. I'm talking to Joe Girardi before the game. He likes to see when the bite on his slider is strong early, that usually lends itself to him having a nice outing.
1-1 hard on the ground to short. Gregorius across the diamond. Betts is retired. So Betts goes down, and look, as Joe Girardi said to us too, look, everybody's tired when we talked about who's going to have the night off. Betts was one of those. The Red Sox have like these little cocoons, like in a room where players can go and just shut it down.
It's pretty cool.
And Betts was going to be one of those that apparently was going to go and try to take a nap.
The bunk beds.
It's like a bunk bed.
Yep.
Real
Really?
dark room.
As much time as these guys feel, even on non-doubleheader days, at the field in the clubhouse, we'll lay down.
It's been a long 36 hours for all these guys.
Andrew Benintendi now up. That one is fouled into the seats. And for Betts and Judge, who we've talked about, and a couple of others, obviously, all-star game. And while the swings in the Derby and those things, they are probably a bit overstated, the idea that you're traveling to Miami, you're not either staying in the city that your team is in or going home, that's probably the part that's more taxing than anything else.
You're not going to bed early. You're also like stimulated in the fact that the
Yeah.
guys that you're around, you're picking their brain, and there's fans and media, and it's crazy.
Oh, and let's face it too, there has to be a high degree of trust if you're going to sleep in one of the bunk beds.
I would agree.
The clubhouse.
Yes, Buster. I would think you really got to buy into the idea you're going to shut it down. Shift on for Benintendi, who looks at one in the dirt.
I get the feeling Booney would be like a water balloon guy, right? If someone was sleeping there,
You'd put the
feeling good about it.
You'd put the toothpaste on your hand and tickle your nose, so you'd get it all over your face.
Oh man, I'd be impressed that you could rip off a nap in between games.
I would agree. Warm cup of water, drop the finger in that. That's
right.
Booney. Great. Just misses down. Tanaka wanted that. And the count even at 2-2.
Well, yeah, if he gets that pitch called, you're in trouble as a hitter, because anything down in the zone, you want to see it up, because that's when you're going to be able to get barrel on the ball. And I'd say 80% of the pitches that you're going to see Tanaka throw are going to be right around that zone at the bottom.
Way out in front of that, and a strikeout as Tanaka gets Benintendi. Now, as Jess just said, it's a little crazy there, especially when you're Aaron Judge at this year's All-Star game. Look at the media that surrounded him. I mean, everyone else had 3 or 4, and he had like 300. And then, of course, he came out and hit 23 home runs in the first round of the Derby. That's a tremendous picture where he just is the top of the pyramid and everyone else is looking up at him. And then finally, after a long couple of days, he left Marlins Park. Now he's back in right field, of course, for the Yankees, and has yet to have a day off. And now it's Dustin Pedroia, the second baseman, hitting over 300, but only 4 homers, and this speaks to the Red Sox offense. Pedroia hitting third in a lineup where he slugs under 400, and he's got 4 home runs.
Yeah, I mean, it does show you where this offense is right now. Really kind of scuffling to kind of have that identity. Obviously, Pedroia's hitting over 300 and getting on base, so having the quality at bats we're used to. But in a perfect world, you'd have him hitting more at up in the order and have some slug in the middle to drive in runs. So far for Tanaka, pretty sharp here in this first inning. When he's down in the strike zone with the cutter, or excuse me, the sinker, the slider, and the split, look for the north-south action on those pitches. When he's gotten in trouble, it tends to be flat and be more side to side, and that's when guys have really taken advantage and hit for power against him. That slider right there at 86, sharp, north and south action, trying to get the chase. As you see there, when he's down in the strike zone, he's much more difficult to hit. He can climb the strike zone every now and then with a four-seamer for show, but for the most part, he's got to dominate the bottom of the zone.
Looking for a clean first inning, something he hasn't had in the last 13 first innings, but he does not give up a hit, so that streak ends. Through one, Tanaka and Price both do their jobs. We'll be back to Fenway Park on Sunday Night Baseball. Back with Jess, Aaron, Carl Ravitch here. Buster only down on the field. Yankees and Red Sox, top of the second, 6, 7, 8. Due up for New York. That means Gregorius, Clint Frazier, and Garrett Cooper, who gets to start at first base. Gregorius' first pitch, pop up. Moreland and Pedroia, and now Betts calls everybody off, and he makes the play. One man down. So Sunday, boy, we got a boatload of baseball to show you. Monday night. Stay right here. Red Sox, Tim Kirkshin, Eduardo Perez. They'll join me in the booth as we get the Blue Jays in Boston. Then Tuesday, Yankees and Twins, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Aaron heads out there. Cardinals and Mets, part of a doubleheader with the Nats and the Angels. Boy, Washington just keeps on winning. Angels today, they beat Tampa Bay. And Sunday Night Baseball next week. Hello, Chicago. Cardinals and the Cubs. If you haven't noticed, all of a sudden that Cub offense is waking up. And boy, the first start for Jose Quintana in a Cub uniform, that worked out pretty well today.
7 innings, no runs, 12 punchies.
Yeah, the 12 Ks. I mean, there were big misses.
Yeah, and a great start to the second half. For remember how that first half ended with that awful first inning for John Lester on the Sunday game. Kind of a rock bottom moment, I think, for the Cubs. And
they'd love that.
This is important for them to come out and start playing well, because Milwaukee's not going anywhere and has built up that lead a little bit.
Of course, the trade deadline, July 31. And the Cubs and Theo and Jed Hoyer make the first move as they go out and acquire Jose Quintana from, of course, the crosstown Chicago White Sox.
And that was a move really, I think, as much about 2018, 2019 as 2017, because Quintana has such a team-friendly contract, valuable to them this year, next year, year after that.
May make a statement as well about what Jake Arrieta's future is in Chicago, as Frazier swings and misses at that one. Evens the count up 2-2.
Another look at that cut fastball from David Price. Again, working it off the inside corner. Frazier was able to lay off one early in this count, but they're thinking that's a fastball in, and that just disappears down and in again. He's got that fastball cutter combo going.
Strikes him out, his third strikeout of the day. Frazier is down. So Jess, you just talked about it. Quintana got a lot of big misses against the Orioles. Here's a couple of examples of that.
Well, and he was doing it using a variety of pitches. His fastball curveball combo. He had a sweet changeup that he was rocking to get so many bats. I mean, look at the hitters, and that's when you can tell just the deception is when you see hitters that are way out in front because they see it as a fastball. That's Quintana's biggest asset, is the deception he brings.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that more teams weren't.
This is a pop-up. Booney, we're going to break. Finish your thought.
Aggressively in on him, but I think Quintana, for the short term and the long term, was somebody that people should have been after in a big-time way.
Backyard wiffle ball right now for him. Flying through the roof and out of the yard. That's it. Aaron Judge advances. Aaron Judge, your 2017 home run derby champion. And he made it look easy.
He sure did. As we take a look at StatCast, it's powered by AWS. So Jess and I were there, so we saw it. You watched this on TV, Booney?
Yes.
And what was the take from the television perspective?
Another awesome home run derby. Since they've changed the rules and added in the clock, I just think year in and year out, and then all the hype surrounding obviously Aaron Judge going in and having him completely deliver, it was, me and the kids were glued to the TV for a couple hours. It was great.
Mitch Moreland leads things off in the bottom of the second.
It is back to being an event that you don't want to miss.
And you can't blink, you can't walk away because the consecutive, the timer, it's like this feeling. And even Judge, I mean, he almost didn't make it past the first round. People forget the performance that Justin Bour did in front of that hometown crowd. 22 home runs, and Aaron Judge hits 23 on the back end.
Moreland on the ground. Shift was on. But it's second baseman Castro who makes the play. So Aaron Judge was one half of that combination. The other guy was the one throwing batting practice. Danilo Valiente, who was there throwing pitches to both Judge and Sanchez. And what a story Danilo is, as you see him there. He, of course, comes over from Cuba and, in effect, begs the Yankees for years to just get a job, any job with the organization. And after all the pleading and begging, he is finally given an opportunity. And now he has gone from part-time, batting practice, I'm around every now and then, to full-time and fully embraced by the organization, almost as much, as anybody who doesn't wear a uniform and plays.
Yeah, it's one of those guys that, so many organizations have that, becomes part of the fabric of the organization, that is just so beloved behind the scenes that it was one of the neat things that unfolded on TV, seeing he and Aaron Judge and the other Yankees' relationship with him, and to see his genuine excitement was one of the fun parts of the Derby.
Well, and how excited he was, even just preparing and talking to himself and breathing deep as if he was the one in their batter's box.
He took it serious.
Guys, one of the cool things was after the Derby was over and I was standing there waiting with Joe Torre for the trophy presentation, we kept on wondering, okay, where's Aaron Judge? And Aaron stood back and he waited and waited and waited until Danilo was there. He came out of the clubhouse to join for the trophy presentation. Joe Girardi, as we talked to him early today, said that said exactly what Aaron Judge is all about as a person.
Valiente's been with the Yankees, and on the flight back from Toronto to Yankee Stadium for Derek Jeter's final home opener, Jeter called him to the back of the plane, and he explained to him that this season, as we open up Yankee Stadium for my final time, I want you to have your name announced and be in the line on first base with the rest of the team. And he started to cry when he was told that on the airplane ride from Toronto to New York. So he has certainly become a big part of this one. From his knees to get Hanley. A nice job over there at third base by Ronald Torreyes.
Yeah, Ronald Torreyes, who's moved all over the infield this year and in this series. I think thinks he's going to be able to get this ball on his feet, and it's a little further out of his reach than he thought. So he kind of falls down at the end. So he isn't able to get a lot of momentum into that throw, but still able to throw just strong enough. And look at the long hop to make this an easy scoop over there at first base and get the first out of the inning. Tanaka appreciative of the effort. Second out, excuse me.
They had the right guy running in Hanley Ramirez. And now Jackie Bradley Jr., the center fielder. First pitch, and that was a real good angle to see the break on the pitch. And he jumps ahead of Bradley 0-1. Undrafted out of high school was Jackie Bradley. Went on, of course, to play college ball at South Carolina. Helped them get to Omaha and the College World Series. And think back to your careers both in softball and baseball, to be undrafted, like nobody knew you well enough in high school to say, yep, we want Mendoza to come to Stanford to play. They didn't know him well enough to be drafted, or anybody in college say, we want you to come play for us. He goes to South Carolina and becomes a superstar. 0-0. We're through 2 at Fenway. David Price back on the mound. Carl Ravitch, Jess Mendoza, Aaron Boone as we begin the top of the third inning. And so far, so good for both Price and Tanaka. Back to that question or that point. You have Jackie Bradley Jr. out of high school, and he's not drafted. Like, he's just not being perceived as good enough to go to the next level, so we're going to go to college. What do you think that did to him? Did it obviously serve as a motivator? What would your reaction to that be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Throw is wide and safe at first base is Torreyes.
And it gives you a chip on your shoulder as well. I mean, there's something about that that says, you know what, I have a lot to prove. And there's humility, there's so much blended in, but I feel like, to be honest, for a lot of guys that come out of high school and they're everything, everyone was everything out of high school. But to have someone that wasn't, I think gives you almost an edge, because you start with humility and then you have success.
And sometimes, though, there are circumstances to where maybe you know you're not physically ready. They know you want to go to college if you're not going to be a super high pick. So there's a lot that goes into a guy being drafted out of high school or not sometimes. And obviously,
don't they throw a line in the water like 53rd round just to see?
Yeah, definitely. If you're on the radar, certainly.
What were you on the radar when you were like 9?
I was like a 40th round pick out of high school.
Were you?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Draft and follow. The old draft and follow.
Fight on.
That's right, baby.
USC Trojan. West Coast represented here. Ellsbury slow roller. Pedroia to second, and there'll be no throw to first. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN is presented by Taco Bell. It's brought to you by Blue Moon, brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. Blue Moon has a taste that shines brighter. And Taltz. Got a lot of orange peel, touch of coriander.
Some detail.
Sounds like a candle that would make your house smell good.
Craft beer, Carl.
Yeah, I would say I'm not in on the craft beer. That's you?
I've spent the month in Bend, Oregon, which is like the capital of craft beer. IPAs. You get your coriander and oranges and lavenders.
Is that pretty consistent with the type of beer?
Banana.
Sanchez.
Remember when he struck out Sanchez in that first at bat, he had success because he was able to pound him in and command the ball in, but then when he got ahead of him, he climbed the ladder with that good fastball he's had since the start of the night. As we highlighted, Sanchez with 4 homers now and 8 at bats in his young career against David Price.
Pretty good 1-2 combination, or in this case 2-3, with Sanchez in the foreground, Judge in the background. Fastball on the inside corner at 95 for the strike to even the count 1-1.
And that's going to be the battle all night long to these right-handed hitters, especially the power. If Price can really dot that ball in, he'll have the advantage, because the Yankees hitters and their sluggers want to get him on the plate. But he is just letting go of that mid-90s fastball and dominating the inside part of the plate right now. Another one here, this time a little bit of elevation, but in, and really just blows it right by Sanchez again.
Rear back and fire another one.
Yeah, and here's the thing, because he's done such a good job of establishing in, and it's been all hard. It's been fastball and cut fastball. He can go one of 2 ways now. He can go right back to that same slot where he's going inside with the fastball, but then use the cutter off it that turns into a ball, or he can continue to climb the ladder up in the zone. But he's got him reeling right now, and he has absolutely established the inside part of the plate and shown these hitters he can command it in there. And what that also does is eventually that opens up the outside part of the plate for maybe later in this game. He likes to backdoor that cut fastball or pick off a strike away because he's got the inside so established early.
Goes high. That pitch 95, the previous 97. When David Price was At his best, he would throw almost 90% fastballs in a game.
This is the best I've seen his stuff in probably a couple years. His fastball seems that electric tonight.
And the question will be his ability to maintain that through the course of the game. Sanchez jammed there at 96.
But him just locating, I mean, if you just look at the dots of the spots that David Price has hit in this at-bat, when you see the repertoire that he throws, that two-seamer that you're talking about, the cutter that he'll throw off of that, the changeup, we don't see a lot of it. Haven't seen it yet tonight, of course, the four-seam and the curveball, but the dots that he's thrown against Sanchez on the inner half are as good as you can command a fastball, especially on that inside part of the plate.
Misses in. And again, Aaron Judge on deck. Martin a 1 for 15 slump right now. Price talks to himself out on the mound. 30 and 10 equals 40, and that's every pitch he has thrown tonight. Nothing off speed. Sanchez a double play candidate. Rolls one to short, but it's a slow roller. And Lynn will go to first, which means first base is open for Aaron Judge, who walks to the plate. And for Judge of the Yankees, everything has been his size and his power, and a first half for the record books with his home runs, his batting average. Perhaps overshadowed his fielding in right field. Very athletic. This was a three-sport star who set high school records in football for receiving yards in a season, touchdowns in a season. He could dunk a basketball, obviously, without jumping, and he played basketball as well. From just a sheer size perspective, you got Altuve and Betts, who don't crest 6 feet. Harper does, and he's 4 inches smaller. And it's not just the height, but it's the width. He made Giancarlo Stanton look smaller, and I'm not sure when Babe Ruth weighed 215, but at one point he did.
There's a couple weeks in there. He
was 19.
I did an interview with him. I looked like a hobbit next to him. That one is ripped into the gap. Can Butts get there? He does. Aaron Judge, one of the better and more solid hits he's had in this series. But Mookie Betts is there to make the play. This week in Miami during the All-Star festivities, I got a chance to sit down with him. Our conversation is tonight's Unlimited Baseball, brought to you by T-Mobile. I know that you were asked about adjustments, and can you be technical in some of the things that you did technically? What were the most significant changes aside from selectivity, which we've all seen?
For me, it kind of starts in my lower half, and more importantly, my back hip. Mm-hmm. You know, if I get into my back hip under control and kind of in my legs, basically, you know, that keeps my head still. And for me, when I execute my swing, it allows my bat to stay through the zone a little bit longer. Because my first year, I was standing up a little bit taller. I wasn't in my legs. When I do my leg kick, I'd kind of fall forward a little bit, so my head's moving. And then when I go to swing, my bat's coming in and out of the zone real quick. So my room for error was minimal. But now that I'm kind of in my legs a little bit better, head staying still, I'm able to recognize pitches a little bit better. And so when I do execute my swing, I'm getting in the zone early and I'm staying through a little bit longer, and that equals more hits, better contact, and more balls in play.
Did all your buddies have to do the homework the same way you did, or was it a little different in your house with the two parents who are teachers? Like, Mike's outside or Jim's outside, what am I doing?
Yeah, it might have been a little different. Yeah, they were tough on me, but looking back, I appreciate it. I'm glad they tried to stick those morals and just, hey, you got to finish your homework before you can go out and play, because getting a chance to play this game and play this sport or any sport is a privilege. It's not given to you. You got to earn it, So I had to do my homework. I had to get good grades so I could go out and play.
You're not that far removed from California. Do you have a room? Do you sleep in your old bed, like back in the same house you grew up in there?
Oh yeah, when I visit for the holidays, I got my same room, same bed, everything. There's some more stuff in there. I think my parents have been moving some stuff in my room, but no, it's still the same place.
Do you fit in a normal bed at 6'8", or do you have a long bed?
I got a normal sized bed.
Do you really?
Yeah, I fit. I just got to sit diagonal.
Yeah, that's a secret.
Yeah.
How about showers on the road? Is that a big pain?
Yeah, in the minor leagues, it was pretty bad. The shower head was probably at my chest. So I just worked on my squat a little bit, that's all.
Are you convinced at this stage you're not going to be sent back down?
We'll see. You never know what happens.
You're like that?
Yeah, I still, I got some notes in my phone. At the very top, I got 179, what I hit in my first 2 months in the big leagues last year, 179. So just a reminder that, don't take anything for granted.
And as Joe Girardi told us in the meeting today, if there's one trait he considers to be that of a great man, it would be humility. And that's Aaron Judge in a real way. He is very humble. And the idea that you have that number of failure in your phone is a reminder that hitting a baseball is a lot harder than missing a baseball. It's kept him on the ground. And boy, this is a dude that could easily have his feet off the ground if he wanted to.
Yeah, his humility kind of oozes off the screen. And I think one thing that stood out to me, obviously the adjustments he's made mechanically to his swing, but he talked about it a lot, and you see it in his swing, is how still he now keeps his head, which allows him to, what I say, win pitches and swing at strikes.
Yep.
And obviously when he makes contact, that's where he does more damage than anyone. And being a successful major league hitter has a lot to do with what you do not swing at. And that's where he's made the overwhelming adjustment, and we're seeing the great talent now flourish.
Which is crazy that he does that at the big league level so quickly.
Yeah, it really is.
When you look at his numbers last season, and you look at the dramatic difference.
I thought he would struggle this year. I really did.
Everybody did. I don't think anyone thought. I mean, it was all about Gary Sanchez, the Sanchez. All the talk in and around the young players did not necessarily evolve at all around Aaron Judge. But the fact that he was able to make the adjustments he told you about, Carl, in a short amount of time at this level is, I think, what impresses the most.
But then have the poise and the calm and the confidence to apply them within the major league game. That's special stuff.
But as Sui Lin bats, why is it so challenging? Why are adjustments so difficult? Why do so many struggle when he appeared to do it in a year?
This is the highest level. That's why there's. My life is riddled with guys that were super talented, more talented than me, for example, coming up along the ladder. But the ability to continue to adjust, ultimately adjust at the highest level, is what allows you to flourish at the big league level.
Take a look at tonight's confident performance. It's brought to you by Quicken Loans, and to your point, and just pick up on it. I mean, he's flourished. There's a chance, outside chance, of a triple crown, given their RBIs, the batting average, and the home runs. But the on-base and slugging percentage become way more significant for a middle-of-the-order guy than batting average does, obviously.
Well, and he's doing it in a way that it's the reason why I think it's so difficult, and the reason why we praise guys that can do it is because you're able, you want to go back to your comfort zone. You want to go back to the habits that you've had throughout your time. And when you talk about your swing, he's not in the batter's box thinking this is what I have to do with my back leg or this is what I have to do with my swing. He's got to be able to just react.
Yep.
And so to get your body to understand what to do quickly is not easy.
And we've even seen it in this series with him, where he's struggling a little bit at the plate. It's still competitive at bat after competitive bat. He's probably just a little bit off right now, but there's so many at bats that he's getting 6, 7, 8 pitches in because he's able to routinely lay off pitches that a pitcher wants him to chase. But then when they have made mistakes on the plate, that's where he does his damage.
And now Mookie Betts, leadoff hitter for the Red Sox, with Christian Vasquez at first. Two down. They have gone 24 innings straight without a run.
Well, it starts with Mookie Betts. He's struggled this series. They're waiting for his bat to get hot.
There goes one, left field and deep and gone over everything. His 17th of the year, and the consecutive inning scoreless streak ends there.
Well, you said they needed to get him going, Jess, and that certainly will right there. The long ball, which has been very absent from this offense, a little slider that hangs in the middle of the plate. And remember, we talked about that slider needing to create depth, north and south depth. That one is more flat, more across the zone, something that's been a problem for Tanaka all season long. Now 24 homers allowed. That's a no-doubter to left, and a much-needed big hit for this Red Sox offense that's been scuffling.
Now Andrew Benintendi. Tanaka has been prone to the long ball. When he makes a mistake, it tends to get hit a long way. And there's Mookie Betts, who is named after Mookie Blaylock. As folks loved watching the Atlanta Hawks guard, and it's no mistake. His initials, MLB, are there for a reason, and that is because they felt that this guy could be athletically gifted enough to make it professionally. And you have Marcus Lynn Betts, or MLB, and he's in the show now. And Benintendi hits it hard on the ground. Gregorius backs up, and he throws him out. Just as you mentioned, the 24 consecutive innings without a run. Mookie to the rescue. Big bomb straight over the monster and out on a Lansdowne Street here in Boston. ESPN presented by Taco Bell. Just a second ago, had a chance to talk with the Yankee manager, Joe Girardi. Joe, thanks for being with us. Tanaka, until that one pitch, had pitched pretty well, hadn't he?
Yeah, I think his stuff has been pretty crisp. That was a slider that just really didn't do much, and Betts jumped all over it. But I think his stuff's pretty good tonight.
You know, I got Aaron up here who thinks that this may be the best he has seen Price in a couple of years. Already, any of the batters sharing that with you?
Well, it looks like his fastball cutter combination has been really good. He hasn't thrown much of anything else, and it seems like he's commanding it really well, and he's been really good.
Joe, thanks.
Thank you.
Talk a little bit about Sue Lin, who is the shortstop with Bogarts out tonight, and just how effective he has been. And the Lin story, a couple of years ago, the Yankees were interested in signing him, but the Chinese Taipei Baseball Association basically threatened and said, if you do that, you're never going to come back to Taiwan and play or coach at any level. So a couple of years later, he signs a deal to come over to the Red Sox for a couple of $1 million. And even to John Farrell's point earlier today, he's been a very consistent, aggressive personality on and off the field.
Yeah, he really raved about his calm, and they've gotten a lot of quality at bats. He's gotten on base over 40% of the time since coming up. And tonight, with Bogarts getting a rest in Game 2, he's actually playing what is his best position. He's an outstanding defensive shortstop, obviously playing mostly third since coming up to the Red Sox.
Starling Castro, one in the dirt, and gets away. We kind of touched on it at the top. You assume Chris Sale is going to do what he has done all year and did again. You could argue that these two pitchers tonight, the most important, and I get what his value is. There's no doubt about that. But these two, Tanaka and Price, could be the most important.
I think so. And I think Price, ultimately, when you break down these rosters, I think why the Red Sox ceiling, I think, is a little higher right now than the Yankees, is because of what Price is potentially, along with Chris Sale at the top of this rotation, and the overall depth in the rotation. And I think the way he's throwing the ball tonight is another encouraging sign for Boston.
See a little more of that depth tomorrow night. Eduardo Rodriguez, coming off an injury, back on the mound for the Red Sox. They deal with the Blue Jays. Start of a 3-game set, 7 p.m. Eastern time. It streams live on the ESPN app. So you get Sale, Price, and Rodriguez. Blue Jays, of course, were in the race for a long time. Now 8.5 back, but there were some pieces on that Toronto team, particularly on the mound, that perhaps could be very interesting to other clubs. Estrada. We'll see Stroman on the mound tomorrow night. Aaron Sanchez never really was right the first half of the season.
Yeah, just kept having that blister issue, some arm trouble. So yeah, it's been a disappointing year for the Blue Jays, and they're probably, outside of a torrid streak here these next couple of weeks, obviously going to be in sell mode.
How fun would it be to see a Josh Donaldson at third base? Red Sox, that's the big piece they'd want to go get. In a perfect world.
That feels like one of those, you got to send Donaldson somewhere else and then make a deal for him when he's on that team. The interdivision thing is just such a hard piece for teams to swallow, although who would have thought Quintana would go from the White Sox to the Cubs, same city. Their third baseman, and they just let Pablo Sandoval go, designated for assignment. So he's gone, and that certainly hasn't gone well for the Red Sox. In fact, the third base position and the back end of the bullpen have been problems for them.
Well, there's been all kinds of buzz this weekend around Boston that they've been on the verge of a deal for Todd Frazier. That's kind of been shot down a little bit, but you know, a lot of times where there's smoke, there's fire. There's no question, I think, that the Red Sox are out there looking at possible upgrades. As we look at Dave Dombrowski, who you know is actively talking to a lot of teams right now.
Bottom line is that the position player market is absolutely a buyer's market this year, and it may be that the Red Sox, other teams, are going to wait for the prices on guys like Frazier, Yonder Alonso of Oakland, maybe someone the Yankees be interested in, waiting for those prices to come down.
Got him. Strike 3. Gregorius goes down. David Price rolling here. 3.5 in the books. 3, 4, and 5 coming up for Boston. Red Sox 2, Yankees nothing back at Fenway Park. Day-night doubleheader. Huge crowds for this 4-game series. Not a surprise as you're in the middle of July now. Summer fully in swing. And these two teams battling for playoff position as Dustin Pedroia had your old head fly in there, and Tanaka gets ahead 0-1. Pedroia, Mitch Moreland, Hanley Ramirez. 3-4-5. The Red Sox get a 2-run home run from Mookie Betts. Bottom of the third, and that's how we got to 2-0. This one into left, and it is down for a single for Dustin Pedroia. All right, down to our friend Buster. Filibuster us, Buster.
Hey guys, the poll question that we had this week: which contending team has the most glaring need? And the options we put out there on Friday: Houston starting pitching, Milwaukee rotation help, Washington closer, Boston third base, New York Yankees first base, New York Yankees starting pitcher, and of course the Washington Nationals were number 1 as the answer. They needed closer, and the Nationals apparently agreed with America, because today they went out and traded for Ryan Madson and Sean Doolittle, 2 bullpen pieces from the Oakland Athletics.
Interesting. Righty and lefty. So apparently Mike Rizzo is into the polls, and he reacted. Although the conversation around the Nats and Rizzo, as Moreland fouls one off, was almost a virtual guarantee. He's going to do something. Harper said so at the All-Star game, and anybody you talk to, including Mike, like, I know what we need and I'm going to do it. What he didn't get was Chapman or a Melanson or a Kimbrel, who last year were a couple of the pieces that were available that you knew were closers. So who closes for them?
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit of everybody. And ideally, I think you do have that one guy that is absolutely your closer. That being said, I still believe, for as much as the Nationals have struggled in the pen, I still think, especially bringing in Madson and Doolittle, both guys that have had postseason success, both guys that have closed games at the big league level, and both guys that are having really strong seasons. You add them to the mix with Albers, who's done a nice job, Coda Glover if he comes back, and Kelly and Romero and Perez. It's a potentially pretty strong bullpen all of a sudden.
Double play ball.
And you got to remember too, it's a different beast as far as what is available compared to last season. I mean,
Right.
you mentioned Chapman, you mentioned Melanson. I mean, last year there were closers. Andrew Miller, I mean, not closer, but definitely a relief type guy. The Nationals will love. That wasn't there and available for that. Just the clear, I'm going to shut the door closer. So they went out and got 2 guys to be able to mix and match.
And if they can solve that 9th inning and start to have some success, it can turn into a strength, because then it gives Dusty Baker the freedom to now pick what may be the best matchup for those 9th innings, considering he's now had multiple guys that have been in that role before.
All right, so they've done their job. What's the next one on the list then? Is it the third baseman here? Is it a starting pitcher for the Yankees? Where would you go?
I would go with the Astros, and I know that they've had success with their guys, and even Mike Fiers today had a really strong start. But when you have guys like Dallas Keuchel, I mean, you said Bryce Harper was saying it for the Nationals. Dallas Keuchel has said we need another dominant pitcher in this rotation. When you have your ace saying that, then you understand what the conversations are like. You understand what the team is talking about, because no one knows them better. And that's a team that is so scary already, and if they add another arm, they'll be even better.
Yeah, I think in this game, I think the Yankees have to add a starting pitcher. And you know, from what we're hearing, it's not going to be that high-end guy, because they don't want to really dive into their top prospects in their farm system, a plan they've been disciplined to in the last few years. But then with the Red Sox, you know, I think in the end they do need a little added thump to this lineup, and going out and adding some potentially at third base, I think could be a big game changer and a big deal for an already strong Red Sox club.
Two and two to Hanley Ramirez. Well, and you look at Frazier's numbers. If Todd Frazier, the former home run derby champ back at his ballpark when he was with the Reds, is your answer, how much thump are you getting?
Well, you're getting a guy that for 2 seasons now has struggled from an average perspective, but you get a guy that's very capable at third base. You can also move him across the diamond if you're going to match up and play the platoon game a little bit, but you're not asking him to hit probably 3rd, 4th, or 5th. He's going to hit, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th maybe. And when you have a guy that's a absolute home run threat down at the bottom of the order, I think it just adds a little length and changes this Red Sox lineup that at times has had a hard time scoring runs in bunches.
3-2, Hanley fouls it off. Tonight you have Pedroia in the 3-hole. If you had Frazier in there and moved Pedroia, is it the same thing?
Well, I think you put Moreland in the 3-hole, have Hanley behind him, and like he mentioned, have Frazier behind that. So have guys in the 3, 4, 5 spot. They're going to have the potential. And Mitch Moreland has that potential as well. I mean, he's a guy that hits a lot of doubles, will get RBIs.
I think Moreland goes down in that kind of 5-6 with Frazier, because then when you have Bogarts, and I still think Benintendi has a really strong run, as does Hanley. I think he starts to heat up, and I think all of a sudden this lineup can become a bit of a strength.
3rd strikeout of the night for Tanaka. 2-0 Red Sox, top of the 5th inning here at Fenway Park. Carl Ravitch, Jessica Mendoza, Aaron Boone, Buster Olney. Moments ago, Buster with the Red Sox manager.
John, what are you seeing in David Price's velocity tonight?
You know, he's powerful. This is pretty consistent with the way he's pitched most every start. It's been encouraging after he come back off the 2 months missed. The arm strength has been there, and then I think over the last 5-6 starts, the command has certainly picked up as well.
Now, he obviously was such a big question mark coming out of spring training. What has his gradual emergence meant to the rotation?
Well, certainly anytime you can add David Price, it's always a boost. It stabilized some things. We've had some other guys you know, fortify and really give us strength 1 through 5. Eddie Rodriguez returns tomorrow, but David Price return, that's certainly a strong boost for us.
John, thanks.
Well, long, loud foul, Buster. Thank you very much. Off the bat of Clint Frazier, the left fielder. See Price's numbers: no walks, 4 Ks, and 3 hits. Frazier, a former first-rounder, high pick by the Cleveland Indians, and this one bleeds into the seats down the first baseline. Terrific athlete, one of the superstar high school players.
2 words, Carl: bat speed.
He's got a lot of it. How do you compare Frazier's bat speed with Mookie Betts, who obviously has tremendous bat speed?
I think it's a from a bat speed standpoint, I think it's a good comparison, because that's what does kind of leap off the screen with these 2 guys. And Frazier's come up and done a pretty nice job for the Yankees, not playing every single day, but getting regular at bats, and provided some of that power in some big spots. And one of those guys you know teams are asking for when the Yankees are shopping to upgrade.
"55 pitches for David Price tonight. He has really not ran into any trouble. He's kept Sanchez and Judge off the bases. As Frazier fouls that one off.
He's starting to mix a little bit more now too. Second time through the lineup. We've seen the curveball a little bit more. Cut fastball, just more off speeds, more pitches off the velocity that he was bringing the first time through the lineup.
Our friend Tim Kirkshin would say he buzzed the tower. Chase Headley getting a rest tonight at third base. First base has been a big problem for the Yankees tonight. You saw Garrett Cooper. He'll be up next for the Yankees. Still encouraged by Greg Bird and what they believe they will get from him is more cheese, high cheese from Price. 96 miles an hour, back-to-back strikeouts. He's got 5. Play Ball is MLB's initiative to inspire all forms of baseball and softball participation, making play opportunities available and fun for everyone. To learn more, go to playball.org. In the land of the Red Sox, not a ton, but certainly well represented pinstripes and the Yankee fans, many of whom have spent a weekend in Boston.
That's a common theme with these 2 clubs, especially in the summertime, and especially when both teams are incredibly relevant, which is certainly the case right now. And we'll see Red Sox jerseys down in the Bronx and vice versa up here. So we got Giants, we got Yankees. Yeah, a weekend in New England.
It was fun sitting in the stands yesterday, the first 4 innings of that long 16-inning game, but to hear the fans.
Wait, you didn't stay all 16?
I didn't stay all 16, shockingly.
I was in the elevator today with a family. You know, you got the 2 like 7 and 9-year-old and mom. Like, yeah, whole game, all 16.
Impressive.
Kids would not leave.
6 hours.
No chance. We're leaving. And she was wearing it a little bit. A little tired.
You don't want to miss the end.
No.
Especially if you're making a weekend of it and this is a trip. I mean, why not? You're actually getting more of your money's worth.
They were, what was it, 5 hours and 50 minutes?
5:50, yep.
And they were staring at a rare, possibly 2.5 hour Yankee Red Sox game,
right,
which is very uncommon over the years.
Cooper into left. That's going to get down and go to the wall. Benintendi fields and throws it in. And his first major league hit is a double.
Well, a guy they acquired that was tearing up the Pacific Coast League with over 80 RBIs. His first major league hit here. Looked like he hit a pretty good pitch, a little cutter in on the hands. Cooper, who's been a little overly aggressive in his first couple of starts with the Yankees, hits again what I think is a pretty good pitch here. A little cut fastball that might even end up off the plate in. A good job of being able to not only get the barrel to this ball, but to be able to keep it fair down that left field line and get himself his first big league hit and into scoring position, and a chance for the Yankees now to cut into the lead.
For Ronald Torreyes, the number 9 hitter. We've kept that baseball. We'll put a little tape on it. Remind Garrett Cooper of his first major league hit here at Fenway Park tonight.
David Price, pretty good guy to get that hit off of.
How hard is it to take your act from the Pacific Coast League, which for those that don't know baseball is a pretty good hitters league, and bring it to the major leagues? Because you can put up some numbers at the Pacific Coast League.
Well, and he most certainly was doing that.
Another one inside to Torreyes. With Jacoby Ellsbury and his good numbers already with a single on deck. Hitting over 350 in his career against Price. I saw you reacted. Jess and I were nonplussed, but you were ready. That ball came up this direction.
Got my attention.
Jess was watching the screen, so it would have domed her. She didn't even know that ball was up this way.
I was watching screen. I knew it was coming our way. And look out below.
He had us.
I know. I saw that. That one is called strike to Torreyes.
And here's the game within the game. You know, the Yankees' discipline for these right-handed hitters wants to be able to take that pitch in on the corner and certainly in off the plate. That perhaps just a ball off the plate in, but very close. If David Price can continue to get that and get the call there, makes him that much more tough.
He strikes him out.
Well, let's take a look at how David Price has been working tonight with that fastball cutter combination. The velocity's been there, up, and a lot of pitches in the strike zone, and that's helped set up that cutter where he's gotten some swings and misses on pitches that look like a strike out of the hand but disappear down and in. And again, throwing the ball extremely well so far tonight. Velocity, command, all been there. 6 strikeouts in 4 2/3.
This massive crowd here at Fenway tonight booing Jacoby Ellsbury, who back in 2011 had 32 homers and stole 39 bases. The only 30-30 season in club history for the Red Sox.
And probably would have won the MVP that year had it not been for, that was the year the Red Sox melted down the stretch and lost a big lead in the month of September, but it wasn't because of Jacoby Ellsbury's great season.
Continues to live on the inside, watching Torreyes kind of flail his arms on the inside pitches. It did bring up images of Derek Jeter, who would lean over the plate, you know, in an effort to perhaps buy a ball. He will go into a quick pitch every now and then.
Yeah, he'll do it sometimes with a runner at first to give a different look and help control the running game, but also obviously to try and destroy the timing of the hitter. And another count in which he is ahead in the count with a chance to put away Ellsbury with a runner in scoring position.
1-2 to second. Pedroia charges and Ellsbury retired. David Price, rock solid, getting a standing ovation from some of the folks here at Fenway tonight. 2-0 Boston. After your best plays this summer, whether they're in the backyard or on the diamond, show us what you got on social with hashtag MLBThePlay, and we'll feature some of the best all season long. Rob Manfred, Tony Petitti inviting you to share a little backyard baseball activity. Bradley rips one to left, and that one's over the head of the left fielder. JBJ digging for second, a high throw, and he's in there with the double. Jackie Bradley Jr. picks up his 15th double of the season.
The goal, Carl, for these Red Sox on Tanaka was a see a pitch up in the zone. You saw the numbers Tanaka has when he gets anything knees or below. He gets a great job of something thigh high. And you watch him just let this ball get a little bit deeper so he can drive it to left field. One of the best things that a lot of these lefties love to do is hit it off that green monster.
But that was the two-seam fastball that had that side-to-side action that we talked about instead of the north and south sinking action. And that ball was really stung.
That brings up Brock Holt back tonight. Off of the disabled list. 3 months he was away with vertigo and concussion-like symptoms. He went on the 10-day DL April 21st. This is his first full day back with the Red Sox. He had been at AAA. He kind of begged John Farrell and the organization to let him play before the All-Star break, but they said, let's just continue along this path and we'll get you back right after the break.
And Torreyes, in respecting the bunt with nobody out, knows that Holt will drop one down not only for a potential hit, but to at least move that runner. Torreyes taking it away. And this is a situation where this is something that Holt has done pretty well as a hitter. He wants to get something he can at least pull to the right side and get that runner to third with less than 2 outs and try and tack on an extra run here
And those are brutal numbers.
2 for 51.
It's unbelievable.
In the season with runners in scoring position against the Yankees. 0 for their last 18. But this guy hasn't been a part of that. Throw behind Jackie Bradley, and he's in there safely. Kind of hear Gregorius and Bradley talking with each other. I think Didi may have got the worst of that. His hands out of his glove.
And you can see right there with that swing. That's a good sinking two-seam fastball that Holt's just trying to at least roll over and pull to that right side. But a well-executed pitch by Tanaka. This ball down in the zone in their downward action. You see him trying to kind of just throw his hands at it and kind of roll over the ball in an effort to at least get Jackie to third. A pretty good action on that pitch from Tanaka.
People forget what an important role Holt plays on this team as he fouls that one back. For a while, Josh Rutledge was playing third base and second base, and they were really concerned about Holt, who consulted with the likes of former Red Sox Cub catcher David Ross. He reached out to Dale Earnhardt Jr. to discuss these symptoms that he was dealing with. It was incredibly unsettling for Holt to kind of wake up every day and just not feel right.
And it really is exciting to see him back in the lineup. The ovation he received this afternoon as a pinch hitter in game 1, because he has become kind of a beloved figure here with the Boston Red Sox, playing an important role as a utility player.
1-2 and he's gone. Brock Holt retired. About 9:35 in the East, and with Jess Mendoza, Aaron Boone, Carl Ravitch, our Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN is presented by Taco Bell. Red Sox and Yankees first and second place in the American League East. 41 losses for Boston, 42 for the Yankees, 44 for the Tampa Bay Rays. Kevin Cash has got that team playing very, very well, and doing it in a style more typical of teams currently. Good pitching and a lot of home runs, which you're not seeing from this first place Red Sox team.
Logan Morrison and Corey Dickerson having the years that they're having, the power we talked about. Watch out for those Rays.
Vasquez, slow roller, and smothered over there by Garrett Cooper for the second out.
And now 2 for 53 with runners in scoring position against the Yankees this season.
You in on what Jess just said? Watch out for those Rays.
Absolutely. The power that they're getting from different spots in the lineup. Souza Jr.'s become a real factor this year. But then the high-end starting pitching. Archer's having a nice year. Cobb has returned and absolutely been a factor.
Alex Cobb's last start, I mean, he looked like an ace. I mean, the way he was missing bats.
And they're actively, I think, shopping for something to try and upgrade their club as well.
Their bullpen would probably be where they start.
Well, and they already got Adeiny Echeverria because defense at shortstop was a bit of an issue for them. So bringing in Echeverria kind of shores that up. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking Yankees and Red Sox obviously a lot tonight. But, yeah, Tampa Bay looks like they're going nowhere with their pitching and power combination.
Yeah, and our guy Chris Archer has seemingly found that great pitch of his.
Yep.
Filthy slider. And can anchor that team. Take a look at some of the numbers for the third place Rays in this division, and a current wild card team, a 3.89 ERA for their starters. Third in the league in home runs. Just talked about Logan Morrison. And there's Chris Archer with 147 strikeouts, which is second in the American League.
I got a chance to talk to Chris Archer in the American League dugout during the All-Star game, and he talked about their rise in confidence. And Boone, you're right. They're out there looking for bullpen help, specifically a left-handed reliever.
0-2 to Lynn. Fouled off. As we talked about earlier, if you're just joining us, one of those left-handed relievers just was traded from Oakland to Washington, Sean Doolittle. And Ryan Matson now part of the Nationals bullpen. And Nationals and Dodgers have been the two stories and records in the National League, and of course the Astros in the American League.
Good job by Judge there. Knowing that splitter, excuse me, Sanchez. Knowing that splitter's coming, knowing that runner's on third, I got to make sure I'm blocking in the dirt. 90 miles an hour. Good job of keeping it in front.
Did he go? Check to third. He did. Lynn is gone. Second strikeout of the inning. Fifth of the night for Tanaka. Booney, there's the guy you just mentioned. That's him. He's going to bat second. MLB.com at bat, your #1 mobile app for live baseball. Stay connected with a fully customizable experience, club branded home screen icons, live game video highlights, radio broadcast. Download MLB.com at bat today. David Price pitching perhaps his best game in a couple of years right now. He's got a 2-0 lead, and he faces Gary Sanchez, who fouls one into the Yankee dugout. Ronald Torreyes took off as if that ball was destined to get him. And he sprinted to the back end of that bullpen dugout. There's Aaron Judge in the background. Stay with us for a moment. Jess is going to show you exactly what has turned him into the most feared hitter in baseball. There is this idea too that nobody ever played the game. Like he's just abnormally huge, and he is. But like Frank Howard was 6'7". People forget Richie Sexson was a huge guy, tall for sure.
Yep.
There have been other hitters, but the combination of height and width, Sanchez on a line to left, Benintendi makes it look easy. All right, Jess, you're on.
The biggest adjustments that Judge has made, it starts with his hands. He got him more down and back, which gets that barrel in the zone sooner. He told you, Carl, how he was so in and out. Then less hip slide allows him to stay down in his legs, less head movement. So Booney, like you said, sees the ball better, longer through the zone. So these are adjustments. Not only is he not in and out of the zone, he's eliminated that head movement to stay in his legs and not chase pitches that are out of the zone, which was his Achilles heel when he struggled at the end of last season.
Now he has broken his consecutive at bat without a hit streak today, but you see he's 1 for 16, and that one hit traveled about 40 feet down the third baseline, so it wasn't as if he squared it up.
Well, in his last at bat, which they went away like they're going here now, and they've done it his last 2 at bats. I mean, he drilled the ball to right field, and that's, I think, where you see him kind of eliminate the violence in his swing, because him at 70% is better than most guys at 100.
Set up inside, misses and swings over that one.
I mean, that's just a dominating pitch tonight again for Price, and it's all set up by the fastball that he's routinely got to that inside corner. Judge sees that as a fastball out of the hand, thinking it's going to be middle in, and routinely he has located it there, down and in, that cutting action, and we've seen this 1-2 count so often.
Called inside, strike 3. David Price dominating with 7 strikeouts.
Let's take a look at the last 2 pitches. Again, the cut fastball, which sets this pitch up. Judge sees that as a fastball in, and then comes right back with the mid-90s fastball that is off the plate just a bit inside. And you see Judge kind of thinking that ball's off the plate in, which our K-Zone certainly said it was. And he's telling Marcus Timms right there that that ball is in off the plate. But because Price has so demonstrated great command tonight and routinely hit the glove of Christian Vasquez behind the plate, he's gotten the benefit of a couple of pitches, just a ball or 2 off the plate in.
Holiday center field coming in. Bradley in an easy 6th inning. 5.5 in the books. Top of the order coming up for Boston. They lead at 2-zip and only 8 hits in the game. Sox leading the Yankees. Jess Mendoza, Aaron Boone, Carl Ravitch down on the field. Buster only. Buster.
Yeah, let's get to know Gary Sanchez, the Yankees catcher. Now, he was born in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and he made it clear to all scouts who visited the small park where he grew up, he wanted to sign with the Yankees. He got $3 million. He signed with the Yankees at age 16, spent 6 years in their farm system. He says the birth of his daughter Sarah was a turning point. When he returned from her birth, he told the coach, "Let's go to work." And his nickname is the Kraken, bestowed by Yankees general manager Brian Cashman, inspired from the character from Pirates of the Caribbean. When Sanchez was in the minors, Cashman looked ahead at the time when he would release the Kraken.
Release. Follow up on that, the birth of his daughter. The birth of any child has a significant meaning to most parents, and for different reasons. Why did he suggest that that made it time to go to work?
Well, he basically, that's what Julio Mosquera, the coach, told me, that you know, Gary, and he had some lackluster seasons in the minor leagues. And after he came back, and he caught everybody's attention, ducked his head into the coach's room and said, let's go to work. And that's exactly what he did. And from that point forward, he was devoted to learning his craft, to earning his living in a way that he hadn't been before.
Here's Betts to lead things off in the bottom of the 6th. Mookie Betts in the 3rd inning delivered a huge home run over the Green Monster. It was his 17th of the season. And a very interesting lineup that Boston has with regards to who could end up being their top home run hitter. Betts on the ground. Tanaka off his glove, and Betts has good speed. That ball gets by Cooper. Betts rounds and goes to second. Here's the throw. Safe at second base. A high throw. And Gregorius was unable to get the tag down on Mookie Betts.
Well, remember, Starlin Castro, fresh off the disabled list with hamstring issues, does a pretty good job of getting to this ball and I think giving himself a chance to make this play. The chopper, so Betts is out of the box quickly and obviously getting down the line quickly. I'm not sure if Cooper should have made this play if the throw was too quick and off to the left, but a good job of recovering. But once it was a high throw, because Betts did a good job of, once that throw was wide, just turning and going right to second base, he gets himself into scoring position.
So a single and an error on Castro on that throw. It was a fastball with a little cut on it, and Cooper really made no move to try to catch it. A good throw, though, may have gotten Betts at second base, but Cooper's right foot seemed to slip as he threw it.
Yeah, well, I think a good throw from Castro, and they probably get him as it is at first. But that's one of the tougher plays for a first baseman when you know an infielder's coming towards you and he's got to have a lot on the throw. Let's see what kind of position Cooper's in. Doesn't react to it real well. A good first baseman, I think, really gets into his legs there and slides more on that bag and is able to make that play. But a tough play nonetheless for a first baseman to handle.
Benintendi squared to bunt. He did not, and then Sanchez attempted to throw Betts out with a secondary lead at second base. Former pitcher as well as outfielder in high school, Andrew Benintendi. Benintendi was the 7th overall pick, and he basically won just about every. He was like the Jess Mendoza of college baseball. Yeah. He won every award you could possibly win.
And I'd like to see him swing the bat right now, though, especially now in a hitter's count, Jess.
This is where he does, I think, so well, is being able to recognize at a young age. Forget about how many young players are in this game alone, but Benintendi, one of them, having an awesome season. This is a moment for him to shine.
Well, you got Torreyes in taking the bunt away, so it's not a bunt for a hit situation. So he's giving himself up, and obviously you'd love to tack on an insurance run here with the way Price is swinging, but in a hitter's count as a lefty and the damage that he can do, look to get something he can pull. And you don't take the bat out of your hand, and if you can pull the ball successfully to that right side, you accomplish the goal of at least getting that runner over to third. A little slider here that Sanchez does a good job in the dirt. And Benintendi perhaps just a little too over-aggressive, thinking 2-0 fastball. I'm going to get the head of the bat out, way out in front, just doesn't recognize that pitch very well.
Watching Benintendi, Jess, would you think that perhaps one of the things like Judge, that perhaps being a little more selective over the course of his career as it develops would be a benefit?
And that's so much of what this lineup does, is they're very selective, and Benintendi is the one that stands out as being very aggressive. You don't necessarily want to take it away. But in this situation, especially when this team's 2 for 54, runners in scoring position, you just want to move and score runners. put the ball in play. We've had a lot of Ks tonight with runners in scoring position.
He's got 57 strikeouts on the season, 58 now with his first in the first. He grounded out to short a second time up. But the Hauser Award winner, the Golden Spikes Award winner, the Player of the Year, Baseball America, he was playing for the Razorbacks. To move the runner up as Castro throws him out by half a step. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell, brought to you by the Dell Inspiron 15 7000 gaming laptop, as real as it gets, and Massage Envy. Make your 7th inning stretch better with Total Body Stretch. Massage Envy, making the best of every body. A few folks were looking for a massage after that 16 inning piece we had yesterday. Players, fans.
Mookie Betts got a nap.
Got some shut-eye between games, and it's paid off with a homer and the single. Maybe the nap room needs to be hit more often. But seriously, before any game you played, what was like the wake-up time needed? Could you just roll out of the rack and hit doubles and homers? Don't you're about to say yes? She is like, yep, yes. I could do that. That was me.
But I'm also like, I'm a morning, like as soon as I wake up, I am ready to go.
You're going?
That was still a yes.
Yeah. Pedroia hard on the ground, and it gets by Torreyes. It brings in Mookie Betts, and Boston's got a 3-0 lead. Torreyes was in right on the edge of the grass, and Pedroia hit it hard, and it got by him.
Yeah, but I think Torreyes misjudged just how hard. I think this ball gets in just a little bit, and Torreyes, I think, thought it was hit harder, so he goes right into the dive. If he stays on his feet there and moves his feet properly, it's probably a much easier play for him, and now he's got to play at the plate. That ball just a little bit in on the hands enough, and it almost turns into a little bit of a changeup, and that can be a challenge, especially when you're playing in at third base. Sometimes it can be difficult to read just how hard the ball is hit off of the bat. And Torreyes, a guy who obviously moves around and plays a lot of different positions, more short and second than he does third. I don't think read that ball, the velocity of it, very well.
Booney, I've talked to coaches, especially the last couple of years, and they talked about how infielders, third basemen, they feel like field the ball to the side too often rather than focusing on getting in front of and knocking it down in a situation like that. Agree?
No, I think a guy with Torreyes' hands, if he reads that properly and moves his feet properly, he probably ends up in front of the ball anyway, but he gets himself a better hop and is able to make that play. He just kind of falls down because he thinks the ball's hit so hard and is going to automatically get past him. He's got to play at the plate there, I think, if he stays on his feet.
And again, all these games they've played, Friday, Saturday, 16 innings, game 1 earlier today. Joe Girardi trying to get some rest for some of his players, and one of them tonight is Chase Headley, the regular third baseman. Tanaka at 93 miles an hour throws one by Mitch Moreland. A rare base hit with a runner in scoring position for Pedroia. No error charge to Torreyes on that one.
Now 3 for 56 as a team against the Yankees this season. So a much needed hit with runners in scoring position by Pedroia, hitting in that 3-hole tonight.
Yankees have dominated the season series. They're 6-2 in the 8 games the teams have played. And for the Red Sox, coming into tonight, in those 8 games, they had scored a total of 13 runs. Their batting average alone was 162. Ouch. Moreland fouls that one off. Want to remind everybody, weekdays at 4 Eastern, Intentional Talk. Chris Rose, Kevin Millar, a breakdown of baseball's hottest topics, sort of. You can also see it streaming live on the ESPN app. We had them on during the All-Star break, and the first thing they said is, we don't do baseball. We don't talk about baseball. That's why I said sort of. They have a lot of fun, I'll say that.
They have a lot of fun.
Moreland 1-2. He's become a doubles machine for the Red Sox, and many of them away from Fenway Park, believe it or not. The other thing Moreland has done, Jess, is solidified the sanity of the infielders, to know that when they throw it over there, he'll catch it.
Well, he's a Gold Glover and a huge get that the Red Sox went and got this offseason. 42% of his hits are to the left side, which I think plays perfectly here at Fenway.
One-two, and that one is into left field and down. Pedroia hits second. He'll stop there, and Tanaka getting hit around a little bit this inning. Third hit for Boston.
Well, the reason why Moreland gets so many of his hits to that side of the field is his ability just to keep his hands, and you see what he does with this pitch. Watch his hands just stay on top of a pitch. It's up in the strike zone, and he knows if he meets this pitch, it's going to be the base hit to left field, and his swing is so consistent on a line, a lot of line drives, not a big launch angle guy. He's not trying to lift it, he's just trying to meet it.
And now Hanley Ramirez, the designated hitter, who in 2010 finished runner-up to David Ortiz in the home run derby. Hanley has been swinging a hot bat recently, showing that power on that pull side, and he likes the low pitch.
Yeah, and I think his at-bats are starting to get a lot more consistent. He looks like he's starting to lock in from a timing standpoint to me. And remember, the second half of last season, he caught serious fire, not only in the hit department, but hitting for power in the second half. They're hoping he can duplicate that here in the second half for a team, again, that has struggled to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Batter-catcher conversation. Were you a big talker, Booney?
No. I mean, I spoke.
You were social?
Yeah.
You have a good Joe Girardi story, though, when he was behind the plate.
Yeah, Joe Girardi was one of those catchers that I think would try to distract you a little bit with conversation up at the plate.
Just give me an example. Like, what'd you have for lunch?
Yeah,
or
just trying to get in your head a little bit with some. It was usually friendly conversation, but it was one of those where, okay, enough now. Let's play.
And you had to tell him, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Delayed call, strike two. How about third base when you were over there and a guy comes to third? Are you upset, like the dude's on third, so I'm not talking to you?
No. I would say more to the chatty side, and definitely you form a strong bond not only with the umpires that come around third, but the third base coaches on the opposing teams. Those are some of the fun conversations you have in the course of a year.
1-2 to Ramirez with two men on. Pedroia and Moreland at second and first. Late time called. Really late. Tanaka was almost set to deliver the pitch.
That didn't look comfortable either. He stopped his motion.
Yeah, it kind of slipped out from his front leg. Fortunately, he looks like nothing was hurt or anything there, but the first thing you think about is like a hamstring when his leg slips out.
Even his knee.
Yeah.
Look at his back knee.
Whoa.
That's why a lot of pitchers will follow through and just throw the ball against the backstop or whatever. They'll just finish the motion.
Big inning in this one with two on, a 3-0 lead. Price pitching well, and the Red Sox bullpen in pretty good shape in spite of all the games that have been played, and that's a big strikeout of Ramirez.
And another outstanding slider. He's thrown a number of them tonight. Watch again the north-south action on this pitch. The ball starts probably at the bottom of the strike zone, but look at just that subtle movement down. Less side to side and more north and south, and that's when that pitch is at its best. Real good bite on that pitch. A big out.
Big out for Jackie Bradley Jr., who doubled in his last time up. 1/4 of the Killer Bees here in Boston. Betts, Benintendi, Bogarts, who's not playing tonight, and Bradley Jr. Sanchez has done a really good job tonight. These balls, many of them, because he throws so off and down of the zone, many have been in the dirt.
Well, and really this whole series, he's done a really good job. And that's been some of the criticism of him this year, is just that pitch framing in the dirt. But routinely this weekend, he has come up with pitches in the dirt. And when you have a guy like Tanaka on the mound, that down in the strike zone and then working the splitter and the slider off of that, trying to get chases in the dirt, critical that you have a catcher that can keep it in front.
The Yankees felt like that Sanchez came to spring training a little too muscle bound, about 12 pounds heavier, and they have felt like that's affected his movement behind the plate during the course of the season. He's been losing some of that weight and getting back to a place and a weight where he moves better.
Got to get his steps in, Booney.
Yeah, he does. Joe Girardi was talking about, this is, from a size standpoint, this is like a middle linebacker back there. So that challenge of moving around, you can certainly understand.
1-2. Misses inside, but as hard as he has thrown a pitch tonight, 94 miles an hour from Tanaka.
We haven't seen a lot of him going up in the strike zone, but a handful of pitches where he has, especially with 2 strikes, just change that eye level or climb the ladder with the 4-seam fastball, and he's done it effectively. There, another effective pitch that could set up another.
And that's how he got Jackie Bradley Jr. struck out in the first inning, or his first at bat. Fastball up in the zone.
You think he goes back to? I think he goes back to either that splitter or the slider, where he tries to get the chase down and out of the zone.
Shaken off a few times.
We'll say this about Tanaka, though. I mean, it was a couple years ago where there were thoughts that, like, we're looking at Tommy John surgery, and there's been no sign of any of that really rearing its head again. The idea that this is going to be surgery and the elbow is going to blow up.
Yeah, I mean, it was, remember at the time we're like, he's trying to pitch through this, and he is absolutely, with the exception of a struggling first half, been an excellent pitcher for the Yankees in his time there.
2-2, and he gets Jackie Bradley and shows some emotion. Masahiro Tanaka likes that.
That buried that slider down and in. Strong outing for Tanaka.
He keeps the lead at just 3. Could have been a lot worse. Blue Jays and the Red Sox, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Just check out all the team logos. Games on Monday, Tuesday, double dip on Wednesday. Cardinals, Mets, Nats, and the Angels. That's Harper Trout. I mean, it's amazing what's gone on with Major League Baseball. Nats, Angels, and you don't think too much in the way of Harper Trout anymore. Cardinals and Cubs at 8 o'clock Eastern time as David Price begins the 7th inning. I'm not suggesting that they're not relevant, because they're hugely relevant. And before Trout got hurt, he was the MVP. But boy, the Judge dialogue and the Yankees being relevant and the Chicago Cubs rise have kind of brought people up to their level, at least as far as notoriety. Does it feel that way to you guys?
No doubt. I mean, Judge has been one of the huge stories in the first half, but you know, I mean, when you talk about Harper Trout, Aaron Judge is older than Harper and Trout, who already are veterans in this league. Multi All-Star game.
Veterans.
It's good to see Mike Trout back.
Castro underneath the glove of Moreland, who had no chance on that. And the leadoff man aboard here in the 7th inning. Great story about David Price and Wade Davis. Before they got to the major leagues, they were AAA Scranton, AAA Durham, and they were both staying together in a hotel as roommates in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And they believed that the hotel was haunted.
Oh, I've believed that before.
You believe that too?
Oh yeah, there's one in Oklahoma City.
Is that right? So they had heard stories of a female ghost. They heard knocking on their door and there was nobody there. They turned the AC on cool and all of a sudden it would turn to hot. So the next morning, after hearing what they described as kind of like screams, they were both at the front desk at 7:30 in the morning with their suitcases. And you guys both know, baseball players at any level, they ain't getting up at 7:30 in the morning. No chance.
But they were ready to check out.
They were out and relocated. So you've had.
Oh yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, there's one, the Hilton Skirvin, that's in Oklahoma City. Ask any NBA basketball player. It's
like what?
It's another female. There's a whole story. Google it.
Well, I want your experience. Did you experience this?
Oh yeah, it's the 13th floor.
Ooh.
No, 10th floor of the hotel that she haunts. Only that floor.
That she does what?
She haunts.
Oh, she haunts
that floor. And of course, my first year staying there, everyone had told the story leading into, okay, we got the haunted hotel this year. It's a big hotel, whatever. They're like, that's only the 10th floor. I check in, and I'm like such a naive.
Take 10, whatever you got for me, I'm good.
They give me the 10th floor. Trying to be a big girl. I was like, I can do this.
And how? Well,
I got up to use the restroom in the middle of the night, and you know it's dark. You're fumbling around. And I look in the mirror.
No way.
And I swear she's behind me.
No way.
I screamed, slammed the door. I locked my bedroom door from the bathroom, like as if like a ghost couldn't get me, and slept underneath my covers. I was like 5 years old.
Gregorius flies out. So you saw the face in
David
the
Price
mirror.
and Wade Davis. I feel you.
That's freaky.
She was there.
So, and then I'm confused. Did you lock the door with yourself in the room, or did you leave the room?
You know, if you're really seeing that person in the mirror, it's time to beat it. Don't get under the covers. Kick rocks. You go David Price, Wade Davis style.
I did
Grab
in the
your
morning.
bag.
I did. I checked out of the room. I went to another floor.
No morning. Get down there.
Did you sleep at all? There's no way you could sleep.
No. I had my phone next to me too, just in case she got through the door that I had locked.
My gosh. So you screamed in the room.
Screamed, ran, locked the door, which I thought was hilarious.
I do too. The idea that let's lock her in with me.
Scratch Oklahoma City on the list.
What about you, Booney?
To this point, I've been ghost-free.
Ghost-free. What room are you in tonight? All right, here's Clint Frazier. Twice has struck out tonight. And fouls that one back. Buster, do you have any ghost stories?
No, sorry, just only cow stories.
Cow stories.
You sure that wasn't just you in the mirror, Jess? Did that ever occur to you?
Oh, it was her. She had like a glow to her. Like horror film. No, she was there. I
Sounds
felt
like
her.
the ride at Disney World,
was like
a
a
haunted
cool-
house.
Yes, I was just there. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Where they put the ghost in the car with you.
Yep.
It was like there was a light under her. She was like glowing.
I'd like to see you go back and try to converse. That one is ripped and hit really hard in the left field. And just like that, Tanaka, with a couple men on the last inning, is able to get out of it. No more damage. And now the tying run comes to the plate in Gary Cooper.
Well, and that velocity hasn't been quite as strong this inning for Price. A lot more 92, 93, 94. They try and go in with that two-seam fastball. It drifts over the heart of the plate just enough. You see that good short swing, that bat speed we talked about, able to get the head of the bat to that ball, and Frazier stings this ball into left to bring the tying run to the plate for the Yankees. Frazier fired up.
That ball was ripped, Jess. I don't know if you saw it. 110 miles an hour.
That's legit exit velo.
Well, that's home run velocity. And that's what you see. I mean, even that, the average exit velocity in baseball is what, 87, 88 miles an hour?
A little Hank Aaron type swing. We got to go back and take a look at how Clint Frazier's back leg and foot is off the ground. But a chance for Cooper now. The first baseman just picked up on that trade with the Brewers. First pitch in there for a strike. Cooper doubled his last time up over the head of Andrew Benintendi. This one driven deep to center field. Back goes Bradley, just shy of the track. And no advancement from Starlin Castro. As we take one more look at the swing of Clint Frazier. Watch that back foot.
Yeah, and that's how he gets his powers. We talked about the hands and bat speed. That's what gets his barrel to the ball, but then he kind of pushes off that back leg, drives it forward. You don't see that a ton.
Well, one of the things he's actually been working on since he's come up to the big leagues is sometimes he comes off of that back leg too much, so his body moves forward and he has a hard time pulling balls with authority that he should. He does because he has outstanding bat speed, but he's getting behind balls a little bit better.
Starlin Castro at second base. Should he be at third base?
The ball was low enough hit off the bat, and at the time, one out. It's not desperate that you get to third in that spot. With no outs, you absolutely have to be tagging up there. But because the ball was hit on the line, I don't think it was an automatic fly ball out initially.
It looked like it was going to be a double, but he hit it to the triangle.
Right. Yep.
Spot that.
And remember, Castro has that hamstring issue, so the Yankees really want him to take it easy on the bases. Here's another hit. The ball's hit sharply off the bat, and initially it looked like it might have had a chance to be an extra base hit. You see Castro at the end try and go back and consider tagging, but that being the second out, not something you want to force in trying to get to third there.
Barnes loosening in the Red Sox bullpen as Price throws to Torreyes, who fouls that off. Matt Barnes pitched at the University of Connecticut. Of course, George Springer has made that more famous this year with his all-star performance. And earlier today, Randy Edsall, the returning head football coach at UConn, was on the field throwing out a first pitch. As college football will return to Fenway Park this fall, and UConn, one of the teams that will be playing, they'll play Boston College. Torreyes, shallow left, Benintendi, and Price slaps his glove like Tanaka. He had a couple on, and he's able to limit any damage. 6.5 in the books at Fenway. The Red Sox 3 and the Yankees nothing on Sunday Night Baseball. Welcome back, everyone. Sunday Night Baseball will soon give way to Monday Night Baseball. But what a show David Price has put on for the Red Sox tonight. He has handled the two superstars, Sanchez and Judge. Boston offense has been stymied early and then all of a sudden showed some life when Mookie Betts left the building. David Price rock solid here through 6.5 innings in frustration for Aaron Judge. Just a little pre and post All-Star break funk that he's in. It is 3-0 in favor of Boston. Mookie's third inning home run broke what was a 24-inning scoreless streak. And for Mookie Betts, a rare home run for this offense, but it was his 17th of the season. Got Aaron Judge, of course, with 30, leading the way for everybody. Hey, like I mentioned, Sunday turns to Monday. Blue Jays and Red Sox right back here at Fenway Park. Eduardo Rodriguez, Marcus Stroman on the mound. Booney, Tuesday, that's you, Yankees and Twins.
Yep, headed to the Twin Cities tomorrow, baby.
8 o'clock Eastern time. Wednesday, double dip. Cardinals and Mets, Nats and the Angels. And then next Sunday, Cardinals and the Cubs at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Chicago got a tremendous start from Jose Quintana. And they beat the Orioles today by a score of 8-0. Here come the Cubs, at least for the day and for the Quintana acquisition.
This is one this year is, or this time of year is so much fun because you get those kind of acquisitions and they're on a stage of was it the right decision? That was clearly answered
today, because the teams that are acquiring are needing you to perform immediately. Like we can't have
fan base
a blip.
and especially in Chicago, the Cubs, and coming from Chicago, he's coming from the White Sox.
Right.
And
so Tanaka stays in. Holt fouls one off at the plate. The other deal today was the Nationals picking up both Sean Doolittle and Ryan Madson. So their bullpen questions, which were enormous, were answered. So Buster, if you're around, what do you think the next sort of shoe to drop? Will it be a player that you could identify, or maybe a team making a move?
Well, the biggest trade target right now in the marketplace is Sonny Gray. He has a 1.33 ERA in his last 4 starts for the Oakland Athletics. Only 11 hits allowed in that time. And look, he's someone who other executives from other teams fully believe Oakland's going to move him because he's got 2.5 years of service time and they want to capitalize on his value. Oakland also available to talk about Yonder Alonso. The Braves ready to deal Jaime Garcia. Best reliever might be Brad Hand. Pat Neshek of the Philadelphia Phillies also is available, and JD Martinez is someone who probably is going to move before July 31st as well. The best middle of the order bat.
I'll tell you what, if you saw Sonny Gray the other night against Cleveland, he dominated the Indians lineup. He looked like Sonny Gray at his best, which has been pretty good over the years. I mean, he's one of those guys that could be a bit of a game changer if he got to the right club.
And not surprisingly, the Indians are one of the teams that's actually evaluating him. The Braves are also taking a look at him. The Cubs are involved in conversations. The Brewers. Folks with other teams wonder if the Astros, the Yankees, will get involved as well.
How did the Astros not get involved in that?
They have such a huge lead. The question is, do you make the move the Cubs made last year for Aroldis Chapman? Trying to pay for that piece that maybe puts you over the top. Let's face it, the numbers are not putting a lot. It's pure statistics. The Astros are not under a lot of pressure to make a big move. They know they're going to be in the big dance in October in the playoffs, even if they didn't do it. And that's the question they have to answer.
If their pitchers stay healthy. I mean, if Keuchel stays healthy, they've got Lance McCullers. Mike Fiers looks so strong today. And remember, Colin McHugh, too, is a guy that's going to return.
I know, and Lance McCullers, I get all that. But still, if you look at the Dodgers with 3 guys now, Wood has been unbelievable, Kershaw, Hill. You look at the Nationals with Scherzer and Strasburg, and you're thinking about if you're going to win the American League, which is hardly a given. But if you're the team that's going to represent the American League, you're going to have to deal with likely a team that has 2 or 3 pitchers that you could argue are more power pitchers than Keuchel. And I remember Keuchel in the American League wildcard game a couple years ago, went into Yankee Stadium and dominated.
But I think that's where, for the Astros, that decision becomes, all right, what is the price for an impact starter, and I think they're only going to be in the market for an impact starter. So whether it's Sonny Gray, whether if a guy like Garrett Cole at some point becomes available, well, that's a different story. If they feel like they have to give up too much, they might go the route of just trying to really bolster what's already a really strong pen.
Right, exactly. I was going to say.
And we saw the Indians run through the postseason last year with Corey Kluber and an awesome bullpen.
Right. So 2 down here.
I'm really interested to see what the Indians do, because this is obviously part of their window that they've identified where they're going to go for a championship, the first one since the 1940s. They spent a lot of money during the offseason. They managed to make it to Game 7 of the World Series last year without a lot of depth in their rotation. Maybe Sonny Gray puts them over the top.
Do you think the Mets are open for business, especially with some of their starting pitchers?
Look, other teams are calling about guys like Jacob deGrom, who's been phenomenal lately. But as the Mets spin forward and look at their future, it's built around that pitching.
Sure.
So I seriously doubt that they would consider that. Jay Bruce, yes. Curtis Granderson, yes.
How about the Cardinals? Where do you think they are?
They're kind of on that fence right now. I know that they have been identified as a team that maybe would take a look at a J.D. Martinez, because what they've lacked a lot of this year is a middle of the order bat. But you know, at this point, so far behind the Brewers, so far behind in the wild card chase, is it worth it to go in deep if the player's only a rental like J.D. Martinez would be?
Tanaka looking to go 1-2-3 here in the 7th after a bit of a shaky 6th, and boy, that was impressive. Masahiro Tanaka, 95 miles an hour, 8 strikeouts. Ellsbury, Sanchez, and that guy Aaron Judge coming up. ESPN is presented by Taco Bell's limited edition double chalupa. And in part by Corona Extra, who invites you to find your beach. A lot of folks finding their beach. Mookie Betts found his groove earlier tonight. He hit his home run, which allowed the Red Sox to go on top. And for Mookie Betts, it was his 17th team high this season. They added one more. David Price back on the mound now after 7 innings. And the top of the order, Ellsbury squares to bunt. First pitch in there for a strike. Keep an eye on that lower right-hand corner.
Yep.
He's been throwing 95, 96, even 97. That was 92.
And the pitch count too, Carl. He's at 97, and his season high is 112.
I'd be surprised if he faces Judge again, but we'll see. Matt Barnes warming. Ellsbury right back at you, and that's a helper. MLB TV. Every night, every device. Watch every out-of-market regular season game live, plus get a free subscription to At Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv for details.
This is now David Price's longest outing. Now it's 7 1/3 innings. He's gone 7 a few times so far this year. But I definitely thought, showing the first signs of some fatigue, made some huge pitches with the runners in scoring position there, but in the last inning. But definitely that velocity dip, I think, getting a little tired.
There it is, and when they're hot, that's about as imposing a shot as you're going to ever see. Sanchez and Judge getting set to come up. Pop back and out of play. Two guys that participated in this year's T-Mobile Home Run Derby, and both took great pleasure in it. I'll say this, even though Aaron Judge is in one of his mini funks, he came off the field last inning with a big smile on his face.
I think that's one of the things that's been so impressive about him, is just his ability to handle all that comes with, you know, being a daily, everyday Major League Baseball player. You know, obviously there's been a lot of good in this first half, but the little bit of struggles, it's like he hasn't flinched or hasn't been phased. There's just a maturity to the way he goes about things. There's a maturity to his approach at the plate.
Yeah.
And he's not, you can almost see he's not obsessed with the results. He knows that if he does things the right way according to his plan, ultimately it's going to lend itself to him having tons of success, which he's had.
But he and the Yankees tonight have been kept in check by David Price. And just as he looks at a 1-2 count to Gary Sanchez.
Well, and that's the pitch that Sanchez, this at bat, has stayed off of, up in the zone, and he took a pitch a lot lower than that, just off, that he was having a hard time his first couple at bats, not wanting to swing at. And those are the adjustments you want to see that some of these younger players have.
But what this could possibly do for David Price in this city and on this team is Sanchez got jammed, but he sends it into center field, and he is aboard. Now the question for John Farrell and the rest of the Red Sox: do you let Price face Judge?
And the success that Price has had, as you mentioned, Carl, against Aaron Judge this game. You think about his 3 at-bats and 2 strikeouts, a line drive out.
I think the fact that he's not the tying run allows him to stay in. If this is a 2-0 game right now, I think Price is out of the game.
Uh-oh, that was loud. Bradley going back, triangle, leaps. Oh, he made the catch. He robs Aaron Judge. What a play by Jackie Bradley Jr.
And this ball was smoked off the bat. It was hit high, and that's what allowed Jackie Bradley Jr. to have time. And this is the hardest part of the outfield, that triangle here at Fenway. But watch him get up and rob Aaron Judge. A huge play, but be able to know where the wall is, to just understand how tough that play is because of that triangle and where it's hit. But the fact that this ball was hit so hard and high allowed Jackie Bradley Jr. to make the grab. David Price fired up.
That one sounded different.
Yeah, it did.
And Bradley Jr. robs him of what would have been his 31st home run of the year. What a play by the center fielder for the Red Sox.
I don't think you can understate just how difficult it is, or overstate how difficult it is to deal with that triangle. And Jackie Bradley Jr. has done it brilliantly in his career with the Red Sox.
But he made it look easy.
He really did. He knew exactly where he was and the height he was able to get on that jump. What a play.
And now Price a strike away from getting through the 8th inning. The point was he gets a great play, but what this could do for David Price, it hasn't been the smoothest road for him, and he's now a strike away from getting through the 8th inning.
Getting through the 8th in what has been a dominant performance against such a hot and tough Yankees offense. And that big one by Judge, that's the bat you circle.
Yeah.
He got him out 4 times tonight.
Well, and coming against your rival following 2 difficult losses, a huge outing for Price.
Huge outing. The crowd loves it. Judge claps. They appreciate great play. And this was as good as you'll see all season. Jackie Bradley Jr. at the wall. Main John Buchagras as we have the premiere of this year's My Wish. Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. And you'll be introduced to a tremendous young man, Raymond, who signs a day deal with Dallas. Lonzo Ball and the Lakers Summer League semifinals. And those Los Angeles Dodgers just keep on winning 9 straight. Dodgers have been the story as a team. Right now, Jackie Bradley Jr., the story individually.
Well, think about it. The guy up to bat right now, Mookie Betts, is probably one of the best defensive outfielders that we've seen. It's talked about, defensive runs saved, all of it. But there's a reason why Jackie Bradley Jr. is in center field, and he showed it with that catch.
Scintillating catch for the former South Carolina Gamecock as Masahiro Tanaka starts off the bottom of the 8th inning. This one has been as advertised, with both starting pitchers now into the 8th, and Price threw it.
Well, and I think we've talked about Price a ton, obviously, but I think if you're the Yankees and you're looking at Masahiro Tanaka, as we see the Red Sox closer Craig Kimbrell getting hot, most likely for the 9th inning, but you know, they need Tanaka to anchor this rotation and be the guy he's been in pinstripes for the last few years in the second half of the season. This is an outstanding start to the second half for him. He's been excellent tonight.
Yeah, and for a team that needed innings to be eaten by a starter, both of these guys, the Red Sox were in better shape bullpen-wise, but boy, there's no activity in that Yankee bullpen. I think he even just looked out there, given it was 3-0, to see what was happening.
But both these teams, yeah, they're in and especially the Red Sox are in decent shape for tonight, but the more you can get deep outings from your starters, especially with these two teams entering a grueling stretch of games without a lot of off days over the next 6 weeks.
Yep. Betts on the ground off the glove of Torreyes, and Mookie Betts, third hit of the night for the leadoff hitter, who really relishes the idea of hitting leadoff versus any other spot in the lineup, and the numbers support.
We talked about his bat needing to get hot. His offense so quiet, and he's come on fire just this game alone. This is a pitch away, and this is Mookie Betts. We've seen the home run swing, but watch how out in front he is on this pitch, but able to reach away, just to get enough of the barrel to pull this ball past Torreyes at third base.
Well, that's where that bat speed comes into play. Catches it a little bit off the end, reaching for it, as you said, but still able to sting it enough to get by Torreyes.
Benintendi double play ball. Castro, Gregorius, no, beat it out.
Well, this is just a case of Starlin Castro struggling with the feed to Didi Gregorius. Looked like he struggled a little bit getting out of his glove, and then kind of flips Didi a little bit of a changeup down, and that little delay, that little just kind of not strong feed forces Didi to kind of change course and lose a little bit of momentum. And Benintendi with that speed from the left side able to leg it out. Or is he? No, I think we might have a challenge on our hands.
What do you do to make that throw quicker? You throw it overhand, you flip it instead of going underhand?
I mean, the one thing, if you're in your legs really well, then you can get to throwing position from a sidearm motion a little quicker.
Second baseman Dustin Pedroia. He's had a good night tonight, a couple of singles as well. He and Betts 5 hits tonight for the Red Sox, who have 8 total. Dustin Pedroia grew up in California, a San Francisco Giant fan, and as we were talking amongst ourselves before the game, he's hit at every single level. His former college coach, Pat Murphy at Arizona State, after he won the Rookie of the Year award, would say, let me just get this straight. You got a kid that's like 5'6". He has very short arms. He jokingly said they're 11 inches long, so he doesn't get a lot. He doesn't get a lot of balls that he could square up out over the plate and drive. And yet he was the Rookie of the Year and then the MVP. This guy was the MVP in 2008.
It is remarkable. He is.
Would you call him the 8th wonder?
He's one of the 8th wonders of the world, because there's not great speed, there's not great power or bat speed. His head moves a lot when he hits, but I think he can just some kind of play, right?
Absolute ball player.
And I think his hand-eye coordination with all those moving parts he has at times to be able to square up the ball, and
he's yet to make an error.
That career
in 110 games going back to last season. His defense.
He's a great player.
Tanaka obsessing a little bit with the base runner Benintendi at first. 9 stolen bases on the year for Benintendi. Tied for second on the team behind, I should say, Benintendi, 16 stolen bases. The 2 guys tied behind him. Betts. No pick this time, and he fouls it off. Let me get it straight. Benintendi has the 16.
No, Benintendi has 9.
Betts has 16.
Yes.
So I was right.
And what they all do is steal at a high percentage, as Chasen Shreve, the lefty, getting ready in the pen, probably to face Mitch Moreland. This you would think would be Tanaka's last hitter at 108 pitches now.
Battling with Pedroia, Benintendi off first. Not going. He misses. Shreve is just standing out there with the ball. He's not really doing much. And now he goes into a throwing motion and delivers. So it could very well be Pedroia, the last guy. Double play gets him out of the inning. And we saw Kimbrel, who gave up that home run to Matt Holliday yesterday in the 9th inning, warming for the Red Sox. Tanaka never liked any of the signs he was getting from Sanchez. 4 o'clock Eastern Time, ESPN2 Intentional Talk. Chris Rose, Kevin Millar. They break down baseball's hottest topics. You can see it streaming live on the ESPN app. Tanaka fires again over to first base. Throwing a lot of pitches to first base. Benintendi, another one of those 3 sports stars in high school, especially basketball. Set all sorts of state records and high school records in Cincinnati. He was a Ken Griffey Jr. fan growing up, like so many in that area.
And if he's going to run, now might be a good pitch to go on, because they just showed him the high fastball. I think to go back to the splitter or the slider down and out of the zone. And plus, you might bet on Pedroia putting the ball in play.
Sanchez scoops it. No throw. Would have been a good one to go.
Sanchez tonight's done a good job not only blocking balls in the dirt, but getting them in the glove.
Yeah.
So he's in a position to throw out runners. Big difference from just getting it off the chest and having it dribble in front of you. You see him go down, but get it in the glove, and we've seen that time and time again. So now he's in a position to still throw out Benintendi if he did decide to go.
He goes. Pedroia, center field, playable. Benintendi will retreat to first, and there are 2 down in the bottom of the 8th. And here comes Joe Girardi. So it looks like Masahiro Tanaka's night is over, and Mitch Moreland, the lefty, will face the lefty Shreve. Back to Fenway Park. Sports Center on deck. Bottom of the 8th. Boston 3 and the Yankees nothing. That's a shot of the Red Sox bullpen with a lot of the pitchers sitting in front of the pictures that they have. Basically, their high school graduation pictures. So you got Kimbrel there. There's Matt Barnes. He's went bow tie. Hembry over there. So it was the idea of our esteemed producer, Andy Reichwald, to say, hey, guys, I want your high school pictures. So like the ghosts that appeared in the mirror at the hotel, there they are over the shoulder.
Yeah. These were fun to see
Solid.
of you guys. I mean, Carl with the locks.
Yeah,
Booney's like digging himself some Booney.
Carl's got the feathered moss going. Jess. Yeah.
Where is Buster's high school picture?
Dodger
Buster, all
hat.
baseball, Dodger hat.
Is that a cow?
Yeah, that set off a big fight with my mother. She wanted the standard, coat and tie type shirt picture for my yearbook. And you know what? There was no way I was going to do that, having grown up on a farm. And so that thing on the left there is a cow.
Okay.
Yeah. That's Buster.
That's a good picture, though, Buster. And you had, obviously, the baseball bug at a very young age. Wearing the Dodger hat is beautiful. And by the way, it's not like the cow's in Los Angeles, right?
Vermont.
Yeah.
It was in central Vermont. I read a book on
Exactly.
Koufax when I was 8 years old, and I was a nutty Dodger fan. And I was not going to wear a coat and tie. My mom never forgave me.
Jason Shreve now on for the Yankees.
You saw that first pitch fastball in the outside corner. He'll also mix in a split-fingered fastball and occasional slider. Two pretty good pitches to get out ahead of Mitch Moreland. Fastball in the corner, that split in the dirt. Another good job by Sanchez of keeping it in front of him.
Ahead of Moreland 0-2. Yankees will need some offense likely against Kimbrel in the ninth to try to secure their first series win in their last 9 series. They have not won one in their last 8. They've got 7 losses and a tie, which is the longest drought since 1991. And they played well in this series. But barring anything changing, they're going to have a split. A lot of people look at the Yankees and compare them to the Cubs a couple years ago, which is they may have arrived, at least as far as win-loss record, and they've been in a terrible slump here, but they may have arrived maybe a little prematurely relative to their plan.
Yeah, and we haven't seen all of their prospects as we look at CC there. Gleyber Torres, who's obviously the big piece they got from the Cubs last year when they traded Chapman to the Cubs. Probably the top prospect in Major League Baseball. Down for the year, though.
Right.
He was having a great year down in the minor leagues. But they've got more coming along the way, but they've done a great job these last few years of staying disciplined to their plan, getting more athletic, getting younger. And a lot of young stars now in this club.
Shreve 2-2. And Moreland is gone. All right, we will graduate, if you will, to the 9th inning. We are through 8, and that's what it looked like. I mean, how long ago was that?
Not that long ago, right?
For you. For you. We'll be back to Fenway after this. Who is that? Welcome back, everyone. Sunday Night Baseball. It's been a good one here. Masahiro Tanaka pitched really well for the Yankees. David Price for the Red Sox. And now you get into the bullpens. We just saw Shreve for the Yankees, and the closer for Boston now on, and that's Craig Kimbrell.
And what a year it's been for Craig Kimbrell. I mean, the numbers almost not believable. The whip of .51. Look at the strikeout to walk ratio, 71-5. And if not for the home run from Holiday yesterday, he just continues to really have a dominant year. Fastball, curveball. We've seen him really embrace and attack more the top of the zone with that four-seam fastball than he ever has before. Followed up with the curveball. It's been lights out all season.
Castro, Gregorius, Frazier set to hit. In there for a strike at 98 miles an hour. Because those numbers are so good, there was a sense of real surprise when Holiday jumped him yesterday and hit it over the wall, which led to the tie game, which subsequently led to the 16-inning game.
When Kimbrell had come in the 8th to face Aaron Judge. A 10-pitch at bat, which I really feel like led to the pitch that he ended up throwing to Holiday the next inning.
Well, and that's almost how you've got to hope to get to Kimbrell, because he doesn't walk you and because he gives up so few hits. So it's not like you're stringing hits in a rally together against him. Typically, you got to hope one of your power guys can catch up to a heater down enough in the zone.
Ooh. 99 as he climbs the ladder, and Castro spins out of it. 9th strikeout of the night for Red Sox pitchers and Yankee hitters.
Well, we know it doesn't really happen where the ball rises, but Craig Kimbrell, more than any other pitcher perhaps, gives the hitter that feeling. Every hitter you talk to that faces Craig Kimbrell, they'll be like, man, the ball just rises and jumps on you. And Starlin Castro probably looking at that pitch out of his hand because he's not real big and tall, and almost feels like it's throwing uphill and climbing on him.
I agree with what you said, though. The start for Tanaka was so critical and so good that it does probably continue the Yankees in the we are a playoff team mindset.
Yeah, I mean, especially following up Severino's outing yesterday.
How good was he? That one is ripped off the bat of Gregorius, and it goes to the wall. Steps on first. And a stand-up double for Didi Gregorius, who turned around 98.
And don't forget CC Sabathia, a strong outing, and he's been excellent.
And Didi's almost got the perfect swing to go against Kimbrell, as he got that hit, choking up the bat. The best way to hit velocity.
Yes, with him on second, you can now remind everybody the only team in baseball not to be shut out this season are these Yankees. They've in fact scored in almost 100 straight games, 96. You know, you don't want to read too deep into it, but Kimbrell now, the home run to Holiday yesterday, a ringing double to Gregorius. This is a very good fastball hitter here in Clint Frazier. They brought Brett Gardner off the bench, and he is in the on-deck circle.
He's got some bat speed, doesn't he?
No kidding.
I mean, even though he's late on that ball's out over the plate, and he's looking to drive it over there. But there's a sound that it makes when Clint Frazier.
And the ball was almost hot.
Yep. That's some Donaldson in it.
1-1. This one is driven to center. Bradley Jr. on the track makes the play, and no advancement from Gregorius. The throw comes in all the way to third base. That one a lot easier than the play that Jackie made in the 8th inning, which was the play of the night, taking away a home run from Aaron Judge. Sports Center with our two buddies coming up next. Butcher Bross is there, Maine is there, and then our next telecast will be from Fenway. Tomorrow night at 7 Eastern time on ESPN. Eduardo and Tim Kirkchin will join me here in the booth. Look forward to seeing you for that one.
Well, that's a big out, because now with Gardner hitting for Cooper, you keep him from being the tying run. And with Gardner and the power he's really displayed this season, a dangerous guy with that short swing. 15 homers on the year, but
started out like a house of fire with those 15 home runs. Again, the Yankees have not been shut out this season. First pitch in there for a strike at 87. He took something off of it. Off to Minnesota for these Yankees. And you'll see them Tuesday on ESPN at 8 Eastern time. At some point, Aaron Judge is going to take a rest, whether it be tomorrow or Tuesday. Good sign for Judge, in spite of the fact that he's not getting the hits. He hit a line drive to right and a near home run to center tonight. Jackie Bradley robbed him of his 31st. Take a look at this catch. If you didn't see it and you're tuning in for Sports Center, this is Jackie Bradley Jr. Gives you the feet he covered, how long the ball was in the air. His hang time felt like 6 seconds.
Well, I mean, just the way he was able to time his steps, know exactly where he was, and to get that kind of elevation, a huge play in the night's game. And this is what Gardner does so well now, and not being the tying run, he's a guy that you know is going to make Kimbrel work and come into the strike zone if he's ultimately going to get him out. Would love to just get on base and at least get that time run to the plate for the Yankees.
Chase Headley has come out in the on-deck circle. Misses, now 3-1.
A lot of breaking balls here now to Gardner, and this is such a good take here with 2-1 to recognize the spin on this ball. Look, that starts right down the middle of the plate at 88 miles an hour. The tight break on this pitch and the ability to spit on that pitch, because out of the hand, it looks like a pitch out over the plate that you can do something with. Gardner with that great eye, able to work into a 3-1 count now.
1 for 4, 3 strikeouts against Kimbrel in his career, and now it is a 3-2 count. Fouled at the plate, and the at-bat continues.
Another breaking ball. That's about 4 in this at-bat to Brett Gardner. We saw him go more side to side with the pitch he was able to lay off for the 3 to make it 3-1. This one more of a north-south action as he starts it in the strike zone, trying to break it down in the dirt, and Gardner just does get a piece of it.
Walks him. Tying run comes to the plate, and it's Chase Headley, who is 1 for 4 in his career against Kimbrel, and the hit was a home run.
And this is one of those situations where I think you go up there looking to do damage. You're thinking extra base hit. You're thinking a ball you can drive. Pick us, especially early in the count here. Try and zone him up in a pitch that you feel like you can do the most damage, a side of the plate, and look to drive something. Because with 2 outs now, to string together hit after hit after hit against Kimbrel is going to be difficult.
Strike one. Three strikeouts, but a home run. And one of those right now ties this one up.
2-2.
And you're sitting over there all night long. You know you're getting ready to go pinch hit against Kimbrel with that electric fastball, and he drops in 2 curveballs at the bottom of the zone. Now you know he might climb the ladder with that heater.
Holiday homered yesterday in the 9th inning to tie it off Kimbrel. Now Headley steps out. Most of this sellout crowd is still here. You look around the outfield and through the grandstands. Chases it, dropped at home plate. Vasquez could not hold on to it, so Headley stays alive.
Well, it's a good job of spoiling now. Back-to-back hitters. Gardner spoiled a good breaking ball with 2 strikes. Here, Headley, borderline pitch there, just able to get a piece of that. And again, a steady diet of breaking balls here to the last 2 hitters, Gardner and now Headley. At some point, you know he wants to climb the ladder with that fastball, though.
That's it. It was held on, and the Red Sox behind Price, Betts, and Bradley get the job done. The outfield gathers. So who's the star tonight? Bradley with that great catch, or Betts with the home run? Let's see. They give it to Mookie Betts, even though Bradley Jr. makes that dynamic catch. And Boston keeps the Yankees off the board. Their first shutout this season. The New York Yankees offense. It's been a lot of fun. Buster Olney down on the field. Jessica Mendoza, Aaron Boone up here. I'm Carl Ravitch saying so long from Boston. Hope you enjoyed it, and join us the rest of this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, double headers all the way to next Sunday. We'll be in Chicago. I'm Carl Ravitch. Kenny Mange on Butchergrass with SportsCenter.